Chapter 1103. Yang Jing's soul shadow laughed. Why? What do you mean why? The new demon king said. Could it be that you're also a spy that Yang Dingtian left in evil ways? You're also loyal to Shimin Wuya? Yang Jing immediately laughed. How is that possible? My father and I have a deep hatred for Yang Dingtian. I'm also not a spy for Yang Dingtian. Shimin Ju is the spy that's foolishly loyal to Shimin Wuya. The new demon king said. Then did everything that Yang Dingtian did for your son, Yang Yichen, completely move you? So you changed your stance? That's strange. Previously, when evil ways started the war to destroy the world, you didn't change your stance. Later, when evil ways were almost completely wiped out and Yang Dingtian was almost victorious, you didn't change your stance either. Until Yang Dingtian's destruction was a foregone conclusion, you changed your stance and walked towards a dead end. This is really hard to understand. Yes, it's really hard to understand. Even I don't understand why I'm doing this. Yang Zheng sighed. Li Ming and Dongli are both dead. Perhaps I'll become the Demon King's most trusted aide. In addition, I'm a high-level saint rank expert. With my fake identity as the Silvermoon clan's leader, I'll be able to summon the wind and summon the rain. Previously, I only wanted to take back Cloud Sky City. Now I have 10 times, no 100 times more than Cloud Sky City. Why would I change my stance? It's really hard to understand. Everything that the new Demon King wanted to say had been said by Yang Zheng. He truly didn't have any suspicions towards Yang Zheng, because he was fully aware of the humiliation that Yang Dingtian had brought to Yang Zheng. Furthermore, Yang Zheng's current cultivation and authority were extremely powerful. He didn't want such a promising future, and was actually courting death. Anyone with a clear mind wouldn't do such a thing. The new Demon King said. You're also not Yang Dingtian's spy. You've also been humiliated by Yang Dingtian. If you follow me and have a bright future, there should be a reason for your betrayal. Yang Zheng was silent for a long time before he slowly said, Your Majesty Demon King, sacrifice is the most shocking thing. Especially when a person sacrificed his life for an unrelated goal right in front of you. That's the most shocking thing. When you were about to uncover the spy, Yang Zheng found me and told me how well Yang Dingtian treated Yang Yichen. Not only would our Yang family be able to take back Cloud Heaven City, but we would also be able to become the master of the land of chaos. At that time, I realized that Shimin Ju was the spy, and the reason he told me all this was to make me his scapegoat. I didn't say anything, and just looked at him with a cold smile. Even though he was already a soul couldn't breathe. However, Yang Zheng still took a deep breath. Who would have known that Shimin Ju didn't want me to be the scapegoat at all, but he himself wanted to die. Furthermore, he wanted me to take the initiative to expose him and gain merit in front of the Devil King. Yang Zheng said. At that time, I was stupefied and asked him why he wanted to do that. He didn't answer, and instead handed the responsibility of being a spy to me. He wanted me to protect Yang Dingtian at the crucial moment and save the human countries. The new Demon King asked. Did you agree at the time? No, how could I agree? Yang Zheng said. Before I gave him a reply, he died. He didn't threaten me in any way. I can completely ignore his request and enjoy the great benefits that his death has brought me with a clear conscience. The new Demon King said. Could it be that you betrayed me at the last moment because you felt guilty? No. How could someone like me feel guilty? Yang Zheng said. At that time, Yang Dingtian told me something. He said that Yang Dingtian treated Yang Yichen so well, and even bestowed the land of chaos and Cloud Sky City to Yang Yichen. As his father, shouldn't you give him some money? This way, Yang Yichen's future foundation would be given to him by you as his father and grandfather. This way, the descendants of the Yang family would be able to inherit this foundation with a clear conscience. The new Demon King said, You want to pursue a clear conscience? You want to pursue the glory of your father? So you betrayed me? That's a reasonable reason. No, it's still not. Yang Zheng said. Although there's a little bit of this reason, if I follow you, I can definitely give my descendants more foundation. The new Demon King said. Then what's the reason? I'm really puzzled. Yang Zheng said. Actually, the moment Yang Dingtian appeared, I hadn't made a decision yet. When Yang Dingtian appeared, my head suddenly became hot, and I courted death by betraying you. The new Demon King said in surprise. This is the reason? Yes, this is the reason. I really was hot-headed, Yang Zheng said. No, it wasn't really hot-headed. The new Demon King said. Any hot-headed person would have enough impulse. In the end, there are still practical reasons. Yang Zheng shrugged and said. Yes, there are practical reasons, but it's too corny and disgusting to say. What? Say it, the new Demon King said. Justice, absolute justice, Yang Zheng said. Yang Zheng said. After he finished speaking, his spiritual projection trembled violently, as though his words were too corny. The new Demon King felt his hair stand on end. Then he scratched his arm in disdain and mocked loudly. Justice? Justice? A greedy and despicable person like you is talking to me about justice? Yang Zheng also laughed and said. Yes, I said I wouldn't say it. It's too corny and disgusting, but you just had to force me to say it. A despicable person like me is actually talking about justice. Ha ha ha. Yang Zheng laughed even more exaggeratedly and mockingly than the Demon King. Then, his laughter gradually quieted down, and he slowly said, A despicable person like you can't talk about justice? When Yang Dingtian treated my son as his own, it was a shock to my soul. I was still evil. When Shiman Ju, for the sake of loyalty and justice, sacrificed his own life to fulfill my wish and entrusted everything to me, it was a huge blow to my heart. I was still, because of the evil. Finally, when Yang Dingtian rushed out of the spatial tear, the first sentence he said was that the spatial tear was fine for the time being, but the Little Western Paradise's immigration plan had to be brought forward. It was the final blow to my soul. The new Demon King said, This sentence is very normal. Yes, this sentence is very normal, Yang Zheng said. It's normal, but does Yang Dingtian have an obligation to save the Little Western Paradise? Why do some people always want to save and protect the world? And some people want to destroy the world? In that case, why can't a despicable person like me talk about justice? The new Demon King was speechless. Yang Zheng continued. Yang Dingtian should have killed all the evil warriors, but in order to find the spy, he didn't kill a single one. He would rather let 1,000 go than kill one by mistake. It's extremely stupid, not something a hero would do. But it can give a despicable person like me great comfort. If the world can be beautiful, who would be willing to be a despicable person? The Demon King didn't reply to him. Instead he said slowly, Very good, then you've succeeded. I can die without regrets. Yang Zheng spread out his hands and said, I've lived enough and am tired of living. Living in the darkness is really torturous every day. The new Demon King suddenly said, You have a second-grade evil spirit, so you can't self-detonate your energy reserve. How did you do it? It's very difficult for an evil spirit to recover from the crack caused by the black hole crystal. When Yang Zheng said this, he directly used his soul energy to write these words in the air for Yang Dingtian to see. Yang Dingtian was stunned when he saw these words. This meant that when his darkness mystic flame was powerful to a certain extent, he could kill an evil warrior's body and cultivation. He could use the darkness mystic flame to attack the energy reserve and cause it to self-detonate. The new Demon King's face twisted and said, At this time, you're still willing to help the envoy of justice, Yang Dingtian. Unfortunately, it's too late. He doesn't have the chance anymore. I used the lives of his wife and children to force him. He will definitely compromise and appear. So your sacrifice is destined to be in vain. I've tried my best, Yang Zheng said. These are Shiman Ju's words, and now they are my words. The new Demon King said, Very good. Then you can go in peace. Wait. Yang Zheng said, Right, there's another reason why I betrayed you. That is, if I choose to be loyal to you, although I will have glory and wealth, I will still be mediocre for the rest of my life. But if I choose to betray you, it will be spectacular and even change, and I will save the world. Think about it. A despicable person like me actually has the chance to save the world. Just thinking about it makes me feel good. Good, ha 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 ha. Yang Zheng laughed wildly. Boom 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 boom. Yang Zheng didn't finish. The new Demon King's demon soul art crazily attacked Yang Zheng's soul. It tore Yang Jing's soul into energy fragments bit by bit. Even though this energy still existed, wrapped in a second great evil spirit, it was completely scattered and chaotic. As an intelligent being, Yang Zheng was completely dead. Yang Zheng was dead. Yang Dingtian stood there and watched without moving. Then, the new Demon King stared at his face through the transparent energy wall and slowly said, Yang Dingtian, I will order dozens of saint-level and 100 half-saint-level evil spirit warriors to charge into the human countries and start a massacre to capture your wife and children. And I will wait for you here. If your heart is hard enough, stay in the torn space and never come out. Then, the new Demon King's voice entered the ears of every evil spirit warrior. Enter the human countries and start a massacre. Capture all of Yang Dingtian's wives and children. Yes. All the evil spirit warriors shouted in unison. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Then, the energy door of the Snow Mountain Castle opened. Hundreds of evil spirit warriors rushed out like meteors and flew toward the Skull Hall. At this time, 2 punishers flew toward the Snow Mountain Castle with Jia, Yao Yang and her son. The new Demon King stared at Yang Dingtian's face and sneered. What are you going to do now? The evil spirit warriors are about to enter the human countries. Your calamity is coming. Yang Dingtian's expression changed. Then, he directly released the void-splitting fire and created a dark energy door. An energy door that led to the dark world. The new Demon King laughed. Yang Dingtian, it's too late for you to close the door to the human countries now. However, I admire your stubborn attitude. Yang Dingtian didn't bother about him and leaped towards the void crack flames door of darkness. Instantly, he completely disappeared into the torn space and disappeared from the new Demon King's sight. The Demon King sneered. This Yang Dingtian's stubbornness had reached the level of stupidity. The Devil Queen and Dishi Bian had already gone to the Skull Hall to fight for the door to the human countries. Now that Yang Dingtian had gone to the Skull Hall through the dark world, it was meaningless. It was meaningless to Yang Dingtian, but it was of great significance to the new Demon King. Why? Because Yang Dingtian had left the torn space. The dark world was now completely his, the Demon King's home ground. Yang Dingtian, entering the dark world, was simply walking into a trap. The new Demon King sneered. Then he also released the void-splitting fire, opened the dark energy door, and jumped into the dark world. However, just as he jumped into the dark world, he exclaimed in his heart, Not good, I fell into a trap. Then he desperately wanted to jump out. However, this dark energy door was not two-way. He could enter the dark world, but he could not come out. If he wanted to come out, he had to go through the dark world to the Skull Hall, and then fly back to the Little Western Paradise. It was tens of thousands of miles away. At this moment, Yang Dingtian's figure appeared in the torn space again. He had just turned invisible, and did not really jump into the dark world. Then, he opened a spatial door and jumped out of the torn space, entering the Buzhou Mountain domain again. Chapter 1104. After entering Mount Buzhou's domain, Yang Dingtian immediately turned invisible and rushed toward Mount Buzhou as fast as he could. The Silver Dragon Temple's president Su Yan was actually possessed by the Demon King? Until now, Yang Dingtian still didn't have the time to think about this shocking news. How did this happen? He now knew that at least the entire High Priest Association and Snow Mountain Castle were already under the Demon King's control. All of the Punisher's souls had been destroyed and then possessed by the evil spirit warriors. He had entered Mount Buzhou's domain mainly for 2 purposes. First, to save Qin Huayu and the others from Snow Mountain Castle. Second, to see if he could save the high priests of the Silver Dragon Temple, Demon's Wrath II, Neru, and the others. Although the Demon King had fallen for his trap, he had also entered the world of darkness. However, he would soon realize it and immediately rush back to Mount Buzhou's domain. The distance from the Skull Temple to Mount Buzhou's domain was less than 20,000 miles. With the Demon King's astonishing speed, he could return in at most 15 minutes. That's right, 15 minutes. This was a speed that would make one go crazy. Moreover, a considerable amount of time would be spent in the world of darkness. Even if the Demon King knew that he had fallen for his trap, he would still search the world of darkness. Therefore, Yang Dingtian had to be fast. Just as Yang Dingtian was about to enter the High Priest Association, the energy gate of Snow Mountain Castle suddenly opened. Then Yang Dingtian saw two very familiar figures, Jia and Yao Yang, his wife and children. Instantly, Yang Dingtian's heart trembled. Without a doubt, Yang Dingtian was selfless. He had risked his life to return to Mount Buzhou to save the high priests of the Silver Dragon Temple. However, time was limited. Between the high priests and his wife and children, Yang Dingtian would definitely choose his family. He was not selfless to the point where he would give up his family. Therefore, Yang Dingtian immediately gave up on entering Mount Buzhou's High Priest Association. He immediately turned invisible and flew towards the Snow Mountain Castle. At this moment, the two punishers brought Jia and Yao Yang to a room in the Snow Mountain Castle. They said, "Madam Jia, please wait here. We will inform the Silver Dragon Inquisitor." Jia looked around and hugged her son Yao Yang tightly. "Where's my father? Where is my husband Yang Dingtian? Didn't the agreement say that Yao Yang could only enter the Silver Dragon Temple when he was 20 years old?" The two Saint-class punishers replied, "I'm sorry, Madam Jia. I have no authority to answer your question. When the head judge sees you, he will be able to answer your questions. Now please wait for a moment. I will go and report." After that, the two Saint-rank experts left the room to look for President Su Yan. However, President Su Yan was nowhere to be seen in the Silver Dragon Judge's room or the meeting room. In fact, almost all of the punishers in the Snow Mountain Castle had disappeared. In the entire Snow Mountain Castle, only the mechanism room of the Energy Gate had two demi-saint punishers. Immediately, the two Saint-class punishers entered the mechanism control room and asked the two demi-saint punishers, "Where's the head judge?" The two demi-saint punishers had been possessed by the evil spirit warriors and had become complete followers of evil ways. Immediately, the two demi-saint punishers said, "The head judge is interrogating criminals in the underground prison. Please follow me." Then the two demi-saint punishers led the way and entered the underground prison. When the two saint-level punishers saw that all the evil spirit cultivators and the remnants of the evil path had disappeared from the underground energy prison, they couldn't help being stunned. However, these were not things that they were concerned about. The only thing they cared about now was to report to the Silver Dragon Inquisitor. "Where's the head judge?" One of the Saint-class punishers said, "I've completed my mission. I'm going to report it to the head judge." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, the energy walls of the underground prison closed. The two Saint-class punishers were completely shut down. "Why are you doing this?" The two Saint-class punishers were not enraged. They were only slightly shocked. The evil spirit punisher said, "Under the head judge's orders, we're shutting you down temporarily to ensure the confidentiality of the mission." Yes. Then, the two Saint-class punishers did not have any doubts or resistance. They sat down cross-legged and closed their eyes to receive the order. To put it nicely, these punishers were doing their duty. To put it bluntly, water had entered their heads. The two evil spirit warriors looked at each other and revealed a disdainful smile. And they were still Saint-class experts. They were really stupid. Then, the two of them were about to leave the hell prison to imprison Jia and Yao Yang. Bang! However, when they walked out, they found that they had bumped into an energy wall. They were actually imprisoned as well. What was going on? The two evil spirit warriors were shocked. What was going on? Of course, it was Yang Dingtian. He turned invisible and entered the underground prison. Subsequently, he activated the energy prison that the evil spirit martial artist was in. After that, Yang Dingtian did not appear to interrogate the two evil spirit warriors. Instead, he quickly went to the crystal array control room of the Snow Mountain Castle's energy gate. Boom 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 boom. Yang Dingtian launched a dozen attacks in succession. In an instant, the fragile energy array was destroyed. The energy gate completely disappeared. Immediately, the Snow Mountain Castle and the Little Western Paradise were also completely isolated. At this time, the army of the Snow Mountain Castle was still patrolling the various military passes of the castle. The hierarchy of the Snow Mountain Castle was clear. The city walls, passes, and other places were the territory of the army, and the main hall of the castle was the Punisher's territory. Therefore, Yang Dingtian did not cause any disturbance when he destroyed the energy gate's energy array. Next, Yang Dingtian began to search quickly. Soon, in a dark prison cell, Yang Dingtian found Qin Huayu and the other Council of Light team. However, everyone's mystic meridians were sealed, and they were completely unconscious. Yang Dingtian tried to break through Qin Huayu's mystic qi seal. In the end, he found that this seal was very powerful. He could break through it, but it was very slow. Therefore, Yang Dingtian temporarily gave up on breaking through Qin Huayu and the others' energy seals. Then, he quickly searched for Jia and Yao Yang in the main hall of the castle. This was even easier. Soon, Yang Dingtian found Jia and Yao Yang in a room, who were filled with uneasiness. Yang Dingtian immediately appeared. Seeing Yang Dingtian appear, Jia heaved a sigh of relief and said angrily, "Yang Dingtian, what are you doing? Didn't we agree to send the baby to the Silver Dragon Temple when he grows up? I can't bear to do that when he's so young. Is it related to the collapse of the Little Western Paradise a few days ago?" Yang Dingtian didn't say anything and immediately rushed forward. He hugged Jia and her son in his embrace and deeply smelled their scent. Thank goodness, the heavens were kind to Yang Dingtian and let him save Jia and her son. If Yang Dingtian had not used a trick at the last moment and escaped, then Jia and her son would have completely fallen into the Demon King's claws. Then, what would the enraged Demon King do to Jia and her son? Yang Dingtian did not dare to imagine. "Husband, what's wrong?" Jia asked in a trembling voice. She could feel a sense of unease from Yang Dingtian's expression. Yang Dingtian said, "Little Ya, don't interrupt what I'm about to say. Also prepare yourself." Jia nodded. Yang Dingtian said, "For some reason, President Su Yan has been possessed by the Demon King. Therefore, the current Demon King is a combination of President Su Yan and the Demon King Wentian. Together with the Chaos Emperor armor, he is invincible and close to a demigod." As soon as he said this, Jia's expression changed drastically. However, she did not ask anything and continued to wait for Yang Dingtian's answer. Yang Dingtian continued, "I haven't found the whereabouts of my father-in-law, Demon Wrath II, for now, but he should be imprisoned in the Hell Prison. He's very smart, so I don't think his life is in danger for now. The Demon King needs him to control the Little Western Paradise. I'll go and save them in a while." Jia said in horror. "No, husband, the Demon King will be back soon. You should leave immediately. He wants you. The whole Little Western Paradise added together is not as important as you in his heart." Yang Dingtian said, "I know that the Demon King has been tricked into the dark world by me. However, he will return to Mount Buzhou in 15 minutes at most. However, I've already destroyed the energy gate, so the Demon King can't enter Mount Buzhou for now." Jia said, "Still, we have to be quick. The Demon King definitely knows the energy equation of the energy gate. He can reconstruct a new energy array and construct the energy gate in a very short time." "I know, so we have to be quick." Yang Dingtian said, "Let's go and save my father-in-law now." "You don't have the key to the Hell Prison. How can you save him?" Jia asked. Yang Dingtian said, "I have the space technique." Then, Yang Dingtian immediately pulled Jia and Yao Yang, found a huge carriage, and loaded Qin Huayu and the others into it. After doing all this, he did not even interrogate the two evil warriors. Instead, he continued to conceal himself and flew toward the Hell Prison as fast as he could. Just as Yang Dingtian had guessed, after the Demon King entered the dark world, he quickly searched for Yang Dingtian's figure. He searched for nearly 10 minutes at lightning speed and confirmed that Yang Dingtian had not entered the dark world. He confirmed that he had fallen into a trap. At this time, Yang Dingtian must have come out from the spatial tear and re-entered Mount Buzhou to save them. Now the Demon King could only hope that the two saint-level punishers could stop Yang Dingtian and even capture Yang Dingtian. Basically, the two saint-level punishers would definitely do so, because according to their orders, Yang Dingtian had already become a first-class enemy. Once they saw him, They were to capture him immediately. Young Dingtian's cultivation was at the peak of the half-saint level. He was no match for the 2 saint-level punishers. Then, the Demon King left the dark world as fast as he could, and arrived at the door of darkness. After pushing open the door of darkness, the Hall of Skulls was outside. At this time, either the Devil Queen or the Dishi Bien should be in the Hall of Skulls. This was because they had led 4 saint-level punishers and had taken back the door to the human kingdom. In a few hours, hundreds of evil spirit punishers would enter the human kingdom and start a massacre. After pushing open the door of darkness, the new Demon King directly ordered, "Soon, more than 100 evil spirit punishers will arrive. Devil Queen, you will lead the team into the human kingdom and start a massacre. Don't hold back." After pushing open the door and entering the Hall of Skulls, the new Demon King immediately saw 6 people sitting neatly in the Hall of Skulls. The Devil Queen, the Dishi Bien, and the 4 evil spirit punishers were all present. The Demon King couldn't help but be shocked. What did it mean that all 6 of them were present? It meant that they hadn't taken back the door to the human kingdom. How was this possible? How was this possible? Even if Wu Yu and Violets came together, they wouldn't be a match for 6 saint-level evil spirit punishers. What's going on? The Demon King asked hoarsely. When the Devil Queen saw the Demon King, she also trembled and said, "Your Majesty Demon King, has Yang Dingtian been captured?" To the Devil Queen, the Demon King must have only come because they had captured Yang Dingtian. Moreover, capturing Yang Dingtian was absolute. There couldn't be any accidents. The Demon King's face suddenly trembled and said, "What's wrong with you? Why didn't you take back the door to the human kingdom?" The Devil Queen said, "When we entered the Hall of Skulls, it was empty. After that, no one entered, so we couldn't go out and take back the door to the human kingdom. However, as long as we capture Yang Dingtian, it doesn't matter if we don't take back the door to the human kingdom." Suddenly, the Demon King's heart was filled with boundless anger. They didn't capture Yang Dingtian, and they didn't take back the door to the human kingdom. Everything was a failure. Everything was a failure. Immediately after, the Demon King didn't say anything and directly flew towards Mount Buzhou. He angrily ordered, "Go, return to Mount Buzhou and tear Yang Dingtian to pieces, tear him to pieces." Of course, he was just venting his anger. What he wanted was to possess Yang Dingtian. He wanted the greater space technique that he spoke of. How could he tear him to pieces? However, he had been defeated by Yang Dingtian twice in a row, so he had to punish Yang Dingtian. Jie and Yao Yang had already entered the Snow Mountain Castle. He wanted to return as quickly as possible and vent his anger on Jie. Yang Dingtian had brought him great humiliation, so he couldn't blame him for doing something terrible to Jie. He would carry out all the terrible punishments on Jie's body. Rape and ravage were just the beginning. He was going to let Yang Dingtian know what it meant to be unable to live or die. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to vent the fury in his heart. Then, the Demon King completely ignored the Devil Queen, Dishi Bien, and the others behind him. He used the Chaos Emperor Armor's blink technique to quickly return to Mount Buzhou. With the Chaos Emperor Armor's astonishing speed, the distance of nearly 20,000 miles was covered in just a few minutes. His blink technique covered a distance of 100 miles. Soon, the Snow Mountain Castle stood in front of him. Then he suddenly raised the token and loudly said, "Open the energy gate." The lookout on the Snow Mountain Castle immediately noticed and nodded. Yes. Then he ordered the Punisher of the Energy Gate to open the energy gate. At this time, Yang Dingtian had already arrived at the Hell Prison with Jie and her son. Chapter 1105. The Hell Prison was not just a simple crystal energy array. It was an energy prison formed by condensing the powerful energy of heaven and earth in the depths of Mount Buzhou. Even the Demon King and Su Yan Wentian would not be able to come out of this energy prison, let alone a saint level. Now, Yang Dingtian only had a quarter of the key in his hands. However, his spatial technique could pass through any energy wall. Just like that, Yang Dingtian created a spatial door and entered the depths of the Hell Prison layer by layer. There were 10 people imprisoned in the Hell Prison. Neru, Demon Rage 2, Demon Fox High Priest Fire Dance, and the weak High Priest of the Silent Tribe. Seeing Yang Dingtian appear, the few people present were extremely shocked. Then they roared, "What are you doing here? Go go." Yang Dingtian didn't even have the time to explain. He immediately went forward and carried the weak High Priest Huowu and the 6 silent races High Priests on his back. He opened the spatial door and passed through the energy prison layer by layer before placing them into the large carriage. Then, he used the spatial door to enter the depths of the hell prison again. He began to rescue Neru, Demon Rage 2, and the others. "No, I'm not going out," Demon Rage 2 directly said to Yang Dingtian. At this time, Demon Rage 2's cultivation was completely suppressed by the Demon King. It was easy for Yang Dingtian to take him away. However, he looked at Yang Dingtian firmly. "I'm not going out. I don't know how you came here, and I don't know how you escaped from his claws. But you have to go quickly. Leave as fast as you can. The Demon King will be back soon. Once he comes back, you will definitely not be able to escape from his claws." Yang Dingtian said, "Don't worry. I've already rescued Jia and Demon Sunday. I'll bring them to the human kingdom in a while." Demon Rage 2 shook his head sadly. There's no pure land in this world anymore. The Demon King and his evil martial artists will soon invade the human kingdom. Yang Dingtian said, "The gate to the human kingdom has been sealed. They can't enter the human kingdom." Instantly, Demon Rage 2 was surprised. And he said, "Could it be that you've seen through the fact that the Demon King had seized Su Yan's body?" "No, I didn't. Yang Dingtian, it's Violet's. She's very suspicious and thinks that we took down the Demon King too easily. She couldn't stop me from returning to Mount Buzhou, but she insisted on temporarily closing the gates to the human kingdoms." He was worried that the drastic changes in Little Western Paradise would cause the demonic Fox clan to invade the human nations en masse. I agreed with him and decided to close the door to the human kingdom until I received a new order. So it's really fortunate. Then don't forget, the Demon King has the Void Fisher Fire. He can enter the first Dark Realm from the Little Western Paradise through the Dark Rift, and then enter the human kingdom, Demon Rage 2 said. Yang Dingtian was silent for a moment before he said, "That's also a matter of 5 months later. At the very least, I have 5 months. Alright, there's not much time left. You have to return to the human kingdoms with me." "No, I won't go." Demon Rage 2 looked at Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian didn't say anything else. He directly carried him and was about to put him into the space ring. Demon Rage 2's cultivation was sealed, and he couldn't resist at all. "Yang Dingtian, listen to me. I can't go," Demon Rage 2 said anxiously and seriously. "If I leave, no one in Little Western Paradise will know the truth. The Shadow Spear clan needs my protection. Demon Lee is gone. The Silver Moon clan and the Alliance of Justice and Order need my protection. The Demonic Fox clan needs me, and the Demon King to pretend to be obedient." Yang Dingtian stared at Demon Rage 2 for a long time. Boom! At this moment, a loud sound suddenly came from the Snow Mountain Castle in the distance. The officer on the Snow Mountain Castle sent a message to the mechanism room. But no one opened the energy door for a long time. Immediately, he hurriedly entered the castle and found that the complicated and precise energy array in the mechanism room of the energy door had been completely destroyed. In other words, the energy door had been destroyed. Therefore, he hurriedly reported this to the Silver Dragon Inquisitor. Immediately, the Demon King was furious. Although he had already guessed this, he was still extremely furious. Then, he crazily attacked the energy wall where the energy door was located. The entire Snow Mountain Castle was shaking, and loud sounds came from it. However, it was useless. Even if his cultivation was close to that of a demigod, he couldn't destroy a semi-independent plane. Although the Buzhou Mountain domain was very small, it was still considered half a plane. Taking a deep breath, the Demon King left the Buzhou Mountain domain as fast as he could. He needed to collect crystals and temporarily build an energy array to create a temporary energy door. The whole process was difficult, but it was also very easy. This was because all the attributes of this energy wall had been deciphered. Therefore, the relevant energy array analysis was already clear. Once he had enough energy crystals, he could build the energy array. However, what he needed was time. And now the most important thing was time. In this period of time, young Dingtian would be excitedly making waves in the Buzhou mountain domain, saving who knew how many people. He originally wanted to order the warriors of the Snow Mountain Castle to stop young Dingtian. However, he quickly gave up on this idea. These warriors weren't even punishers, and their cultivation was low. Going to Yang Dingtian's side would only be suicide. In the Hell Prison, Yang Dingtian was shocked when he heard that Demon Rage II was not leaving. Your Excellency Demon Rage, are you sure? Yang Dingtian asked. I'm sure, Demon Rage II said. If I leave, it will be a great catastrophe for the Shadow Spear race. I respect your decision, Yang Dingtian said, and then walked towards Neru. He wanted to put her into the space ring and take her out of the Hell Prison. I'm not going out either, Neru said seriously. Just Demon Rage II is not enough. As the chairman, I have to stay with the Little Western Paradise. I have the responsibility to protect the entire Little Western Paradise. Yang Dingtian fell into hesitation. Unlike Demon Rage II, Neru was a woman, and she was Wu Yu's mother. You should go quickly. Although you temporarily destroyed the energy gate, the Demon King will soon build a new one. You don't have much time, Neru said. Next, you still have the people of the Silver Dragon Temple to save. Yang Dingtian thought for a while and nodded. Then, Lan Ling stepped forward and put the Demon Fox High Priest into the space ring, and then picked up High Priest Huowu. Chairman Neru, father-in-law, take care, Yang Dingtian said. Take care, Neru said. Yang Dingtian created a space gate and brought the Demon Fox High Priest and High Priest Huowu out of the Hell Prison. The next stop was the Silver Dragon Temple. He had to save all the High Priests. In the High Priest Association of Mount Buzhou, the surviving High Priests were temporarily released by the Demon King, so they were all meditating. Huowu and the Demon Fox High Priest did not wake them up. They directly transferred them to the snow condors of Mount Buzhou while they were meditating. Dozens of High Priests were carried by dozens of snow condors. In a large carriage, Qin Huayu led the Council of Light's judgment team. Under the leadership of Yang Dingtian, they flew desperately towards the spatial tear. Although there were a few snow condors pulling the carriage, it took almost an hour to reach the spatial tear. Then Yang Dingtian began the long process of transferring people. There were more than 100 people who needed to be transferred to the spatial tear. Many of the High Priests needed to be stored in a space ring before they could jump through the space gate and enter the spatial tear. Yang Dingtian first let Jia, the Demon Fox High Priest, and Huowu enter the spatial tear. Then he quickly threw all the people below the half-saint level into the space gate and into the spatial tear. Finally, he transferred all the High Priests of the saint level. Yang Dingtian put them into the space ring one by one, then jumped through the space gate and into the spatial tear. The whole process took half an hour. Finally, more than 100 people and dozens of snow condors were all transferred into the spatial tear. After entering the spatial tear, the High Priests who were meditating did not wake up. Then, Yang Dingtian led the team of more than 100 people through tens of thousands of miles of spatial tear and flew towards the human countries. These snow condors were already considered very handsome flying mounts, but it would still take a few days and nights to pass through the spatial tear. The Demon King's speed was undoubtedly astonishing. He obtained all the crystals within 2 hours. Then in less than 2 hours, he built an incomparably huge and complicated energy formation. Then, he activated the energy formation and created an energy gate. He finally entered the Snow Mountain Castle and the Buzhou Mountain Domain. At this moment, Yang Dingtian had already brought everyone and escaped without a trace. In the Snow Mountain Castle, of course, Jia and her son were gone. In the underground prison, there were only 2 saint-level punishers and 2 evil spirit punishers. Seeing the Demon King, the 2 saint-level punishers stood up and said, "Lord Inquisitor, your order has been completed. We have brought the people to the Snow Mountain Castle and handed in the mission to you." The Demon King's face twitched violently. Then his eyes shot out an evil light, and he suddenly opened his big hand. There was a burst of ghostly wailing and howling. Evil soul art activated. The two saint-level punishers had their souls extracted and became walking corpses. Then, the Demon King immediately flew to the hell prison. Inside, the 6 silent clan members had disappeared. The Demon Fox and High Priest Huowu had also disappeared. However, Monsters Wrath 2 and Neru were still there. The Demon King couldn't help but be stunned. Why didn't Yang Dingtian save the 2 of them? Their cultivation had been sealed, and they couldn't stop Yang Dingtian at all. We don't want to leave, Monsters Wrath 2 slowly said. For the benefit of the Little Western Paradise and the Demon Fox clan, we also have to stand on the side of the victor. I believe that not long after, the Dark Crack will open. At that time, His Majesty the Demon King will be able to enter the human countries. Yang Dingtian can't escape from your claws. At that time, the human countries will face an even more terrible disaster. Neru said, but you sealed our cultivation. Otherwise, Yang Dingtian would also be a captive now. The Demon King Wentian looked at the 2 deeply, then turned and left. When he went to the High Priest Association, it was already empty. Other than Monsters Wrath 2 and Speaker Neru who were unwilling to leave, everyone had been rescued by Yang Dingtian. Humiliation, humiliation, extreme humiliation. Not only did Yang Dingtian escape from her evil clutches, but he had also played with her. Yang Dingtian had actually rescued over 100 people right under her nose. Among them, dozens of people were the wise high priests that he needed very much. It was a great shame. The Demon King no longer hid it. Floating in the air, he crazily attacked the Buzhou Snow Mountain. Rumble! The entire Buzhou Mountain collapsed as if it was the end of the world. The glacier was torn apart, and the snow collapsed. The huge mountain range was torn apart with cracks of thousands of meters of boulders, and half of the mountain peak collapsed and fell into the abyss. The Demon King's fury destroyed half of the peak of Buzhou Mountain. After crazily venting his anger, the Demon King floated in the air, looking in the direction of the human countries in the east, and slowly said word by word, Yang Dingtian, you can't escape. You and your human countries, your wife and children, will only live for 5 more months. The next time the Dark Crack opens, it will be the time when the door to the human countries will be taken back by me. At that time, hundreds of thousands and millions of Demon Fox army will flood into the human countries like a tide. At that time, you will feel my anger doubly. At that time, the human countries will not only die 100 million or 200 million, but how many people will survive? Your wife, your children, will also suffer hellish torture. I will let you know what the Demon King's anger is. Chapter 1106. After flying for a few days and nights, Yang Dingtian finally led everyone to the border between the spatial tear and the human kingdom. Then, he created another spatial door and brought all of them out of the spatial tear. After nearly an hour, everyone and their mounts finally withdrew from the torn space and officially entered the human countries. Yang Dingtian let out a long sigh of relief, but he didn't have time to sigh. He immediately led the team south and flew towards Cloud Sky City. However, they had just flown for less than 100 miles when 3 figures immediately rushed over. It was Wuyu, Violets, and Vulture. Vulture immediately rushed into Yang Dingtian's arms. Husband, you scared us to death. You didn't come back for so many days. We were really afraid that something had happened, Vulture said with a sobbing voice. Then Vulture said to Violets, Mermaid, you think too much. Husband is fine. You have a dark mind, and always think the worst of people. Violets pursed her lips and didn't say anything. Then, Wuyu realized that Jia had also come. And in Jia's arms was a frighteningly beautiful little boy. Wuyu immediately showed a puzzled expression. Vulture didn't think too much, and immediately realized that it was Jia and Yao Yang. Then, she went forward and opened her arms to Yao Yang. Come baby, let auntie hug you. She was a person who loved to please her sisters and build relationships with them. Yang Dingtian said to the Mermaid Queen Violets, your suspicions are correct. Something has happened in Little Western Paradise. Su Yan has been possessed by the Demon King. Su Yan and the Demon King have merged into one. In the entire Buzhou mountain area, other than these people in front of you, everyone has been possessed and turned into evil spirit warriors. As soon as he said this, Wu Yu and Violet's expressions changed drastically. The Demon King Wentian and Su Yan, the two most powerful people in the world, had actually merged into one. Moreover, they had the heaven-defying Chaos Emperor armor. They could not imagine how Lan Ling had managed to pull out the Demon Claw and save over 100 people. Violet's was stunned for a while, and then she suddenly said, I was really just guessing. Not to mention that I don't have any evidence. It can't even be considered intuition. At that time, I felt that the Demon King Wentian was too easy to defeat. Moreover, I'm always willing to think of people as the worst, but I really never thought that Su Yan would be possessed. Yang Dingtian stepped forward and stroked her stomach, saying, I really have to thank you for your suspicions, and for closing the door to the human kingdom. Otherwise, the calamity would have already happened. Violet said, I think the reason why we temporarily closed the door to the human kingdom is not because of the Demon King, but because we are worried that the Demon Fox clan of Little Western Paradise will enter the human kingdom on a large scale in advance. She was actually measuring the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain, but she had indeed saved the human kingdom. Yang Dingtian asked, Now who is in the Little Western Paradise? Violet said, Bolu. The last time he went in, he replaced A1 and Awu. And just in case, we let him leave the Skull Hall and enter the Little Western Paradise. Let's go home, Wu Jin said. Then, the group continued to fly southward to Cloud Sky City. When they entered Cloud Sky City, the higher-ups of the Council of Light were already waiting in Cloud Sky City, excitedly welcoming the triumphant return of Yang Dingtian. Of course, they thought that Yang Dingtian had triumphantly returned. The Saint-level expeditionary force had won and eliminated the Demon King Wentian. The Council of Light's greatest enemy was dead. From now on, the entire human kingdom could enter into construction and development. They had yet to announce this news to the entire world, because they felt that this news required Yang Dingtian to personally go to Zhongjing and tell the entire human kingdom. Because this was the victory of the final battle, this was the most magnificent victory. Therefore, the entire Council of Light's higher-ups were welcoming Yang Dingtian. However, when they saw Yang Dingtian's incomparably solemn face, they couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Walking in front of Qin Wanshou and Dongfang Minmi, Yang Dingtian said in a low voice, Su Yan was possessed by Wentian. Their cultivations combined into one, and are close to that of a demigod. The entire Little Western Paradise has almost fallen. Shimen Zhu and Yang Zheng sacrificed their lives in the end, allowing me to successfully escape. As soon as this was said, the smiles on the faces of the higher-ups of the Council of Light instantly froze. The joyous atmosphere instantly disappeared without a trace. Then everyone entered Cloud Sky City. Then the entire Cloud Sky City seemed to have frozen. The sky was clear for thousands of miles, but it was as if dark clouds were pressing down, as if the end of the world was coming. The two suns in the sky were bright and warm, but everyone felt as if they were in an ice cellar, without any warmth. The Demon King and Su Yan combined into one, and were close to that of a demigod. Together with the Chaos Emperor armor, they were invincible. He was no longer invincible in the world. The entire Radiant Parliament, and even the demonic Fox clan's experts in the Western Paradise, were all ants in front of him. Moreover, the complete fall of Little Western Paradise was only a matter of time. At that time, there would be hundreds of saint-level evil spirit martial artists, and thousands of demigod evil spirit martial artists. Once the million-strong Fox demon army entered the human kingdom, the only result would be destruction. This was a war of extinction that was even more terrifying than the Doomsday Battle. This was the true end of the world. What Crystal X, what destructive missiles, what wireless lightning attack weapons, they were all useless. Facing thousands of demigod evil spirit martial artists, and hundreds of saint-level evil spirit martial artists, the weapons of the Crystal Civilization were completely meaningless. During the Doomsday Battle, The entire evil ways only had 1 or 2 saint level, and 4 demigod evil spirits. And now it was thousands of times more. Complete destruction was the only result. The Council of Light didn't have any meetings, because there was no need for them. Young Dingtian was the only one who could make the final decision. Thus, he sat on the demon vulture King Azu, and flew around in circles in the sky. Then he saw Demon Sun Baby and Yang Dingtian's children playing crazily on the ground. They made gurgling sounds as if they were in heaven. His oldest child, Yang Ningning, was already a teenage girl. She had grown into a slender and elegant girl. His oldest son, Yang Li, was already 8 or 9 years old. He would be in 2nd or 3rd grade on Earth. There were a lot of children, some of which were his biological children, some of which were not. But every one of them was his precious treasure. The women were embroidering clothes, painting, playing the zither, and playing mahjong. These were his wife and family. These people were all people he desperately wanted to protect. However, there wasn't much time left. There were only 5 months left. Only 5 months left. 5 months later, the torn space and the little western paradise would cross again, and the dark crack would bloom. The Demon King, who had the void-splitting fire, would enter the first dark realm from the little western paradise, and then enter the human kingdom. Then countless demon fox armies would pour in. The world would be destroyed. All the beauty in front of him, these angels, these women, would encounter the calamity of hell. There was no appreciation between Yang Dingtian and the Demon King. There was only irreconcilable hostility. Although Yang Yichen was also among the children, he didn't play with them. Instead, he stood at the side and carefully took care of his younger siblings. Although he was a bit younger than Yang Li, he was already very sensible at a very early age. He was more like an older brother. Yang Dingtian gently stepped forward, picked him up, and placed him on the demon vulture King Azu. Godfather. Yang Yichen's voice was no longer as eager for attention as when he was young, but the admiration in his eyes was even stronger. Yichen, do you know your father? Yang Dingtian asked. Yang Yichen's face was slightly dejected as he nodded. His father Yang Zheng had a very bad image in his heart, because almost every day, his mother Little Peach would say bad things about his father, Yang Zheng. Those words were filled with hatred and contempt, making Yang Yichen very uncomfortable. And it wasn't that Yang Yichen had no memories of his father. The deepest or even the only memory was that his father Yang Zheng injured his mother, then abandoned his wife and child, went away alone, and joined the evil ways. So Yang Yichen had always told himself, raising kindness was better than giving birth to kindness. His father, his faith, was his godfather, Yang Dingtian. That father called Yang Zheng was already dead. Since he was young, although he didn't have a father, he didn't lack love. He had regrets, but he was definitely not lonely. Do you miss him? Yang Dingtian asked. Yang Yichen shook his head and said, I don't know. I just miss him. No matter how bad a father is, a child will miss him. Yang Dingtian. Your father Yang Zheng is very amazing. He sacrificed his life to save me. He saved me from the Demon King's inescapable trap. If it weren't for your father, I wouldn't have been able to come back. Yang Yichen didn't know why, but tears welled up. He was still young and didn't know how to have complicated and sensitive expressions. He just wanted to cry. Then he asked, really? Godfather, aren't you comforting me? It's true. You're a little man. I won't lie to you. Yang Dingtian. In a while, tell your mother personally about this, okay? Okay. Yang Yichen nodded desperately as tears kept flowing out. Next, Yang Dingtian had to make a decision. Should he transfer his wife and children to the torn space? Because that was the only place that the Demon King couldn't enter. However, there was almost no air in that place, and it was very likely to be unstable and full of danger. If anything happened, they wouldn't be able to leave to save themselves. Therefore, Yang Dingtian told his problem to Shimen Yinyan, Wuyu Wumaji and Violets. Almost without thinking, Shimen Yinyan said, Husband, I don't want to enter the torn space. I feel like it's another world, and I feel like I won't be able to come back. We have many secret bases. We can choose one, and our whole family can live in it. In such a big human kingdom, I don't believe that the Demon King can find us quickly. Wumaji said, I don't want to go in either. At most we'll die together. Our family will still be together. In the end, the four of them agreed that they didn't want to enter the torn space. This meant that before the next dark rift bloomed, Yang Dingtian had to save the situation. In fact, the only way was before the dark rift bloomed. He had to go to the first dark realm, where the dark rift was about to bloom, and fight the Demon King to the death. This time, it would be a true decisive battle. If he won, Yang Dingtian would be able to protect the human kingdom and protect his family. If he lost, everything would fall into the abyss. His family would reunite in hell. In this way, things would be simple. Within 5 months, Yang Dingtian had to become extremely powerful no matter what method he used. The only way, of course, was to find the Naga Shuang and obtain her demigod talent. On the 3rd day after returning to Cloud Heaven City, Yang Dingtian and the Azura Spirit Vulture flew towards the underwater world at the end of the southeast once again. Even though many things had yet to be settled. Once again, they went to the ancient Sea Serpent Empire to find the way to the ruins of the Naga Empire and the Naga Duga Shuang. After a few days and nights, Yang Dingtian and the Shura Vulture once again entered the ruins of the ancient Sea Serpent Empire's capital city. Everything was exactly the same as when they left. The two once again entered the palace hall of the Sea Serpent Empire. This was where the Saint-level expeditionary force captured the Demon King Wentian. Yang Dingtian stood below the fossil of the ancient Sea Serpent Empire's empress and looked up. Queen Poisa really looked like her. She was really devastatingly beautiful. Even though she was a fossil, she was still extremely beautiful to the point of breathlessness. And now, Yang Dingtian was going to destroy this beauty. He was going to smash the fossil of the ancient Sea Serpent Empire's empress. Then, he would let the celestial spiritualist Vulture summon her soul and find a way to the ruins of the old Naga Empire. He would find a way to unite with the Naga Shuang. Chapter 1107. In order to protect the Fox clan in the Little Western Paradise, she chose to stay in the hell prison of Mount Bujo instead of entering the human world. Because my wife had an operation today, I was a little distracted when I was writing yesterday. I'm very sorry for the mistake. Also, my wife's operation is over today. I've been in the hospital accompanying her and can't go home. I brought my laptop into the ward, but I'm speechless because the laptop malfunctioned. When I turned on the computer, I couldn't enter the system and couldn't find the hard drive. So this chapter was written on my phone. Then this is the only chapter. The idea of shattering the sea serpent fossil and using the celestial spiritualist talent to summon the soul was based on Vulture's speculation. Whether it would succeed or not was still unknown. Therefore, before shattering the Empress fossil of the Sea Serpent Empire, Yang Dingtian still felt a little guilty. After all, this was Poisa's mother. If these fossils could be resurrected in the future, shattering these fossils would probably destroy her hope of resurrection. Yang Dingtian first flew to the palm of the Empress fossil and took the huge crystal ball from it. Taking a deep breath, Yang Dingtian suddenly raised his Emperor-grade soul sword and slashed at the Empress fossil with a sword light. With a loud bang, the sword slashed at the Empress fossil, but there was no reaction at all. Yang Dingtian increased the power of his celestial qi again, but it still didn't move. Yang Dingtian decided to use physical destruction. He suddenly flew up and slashed down with tenacious. The strength of this slash was more than a few 100,000 pounds, but the Empress fossil was still intact. Not even a scratch was left on it. Husband, do you need to use the Naga royalty sword soul? The energy of the Naga clan is the nemesis of all underwater races, Vulture said. Yang Dingtian nodded, and then summoned the Naga royalty sword soul. 10,000 swords return. Suddenly, a huge golden sword soul shot out. In an instant, the huge Empress fossil turned into ashes and dust. At the same time, a seemingly endless amount of energy suddenly spread throughout the entire hall. This was the Sea Snake Empress's soul and power. If it was not stopped, it would quickly disperse and disappear without a trace. Vulture, who was at the side, cast its celestial spiritualist talent and began to rapidly condense the sea snake empress' soul and energy. Almost instantly, the entire hall shook violently, and all the energy began to condense. Countless light shadows gathered bit by bit, and a faint figure began to appear. This was the Empress of the Sea Serpent Empire. Although the silhouette remained motionless, Yang Dingtian could already sense a dangerous aura emanating from it. After all, this was a top-notch expert of the ancient civilization, an existence second only to demigod Naga. In the process of condensing the Sea Snake Empress, Vulture's face became paler and paler. Its entire body was trembling. It was clearly very strenuous. During the Great War, Vulture wasn't this weak even when he resurrected countless Legion of Doom. It was obvious that although the Sea Snake Empress had not reached the demigod level, the density of her energy was incomparable to that of a human. Just like a Guru-level human and an 8-star monster, although they looked similar, the monster contained much more energy. In other words, a human's energy reserve could only last for 2 hours, but a monster's energy reserve could last for 4 to 5 hours, or even longer. The density of the Sea Serpent Empire's energy reserve was far from what a monster's energy reserve could compare to. Therefore, when the Sea Snake Empress soul showed its might, Yang Dingtian and Vulture would probably die. Under Vulture's summons, the Sea Snake Empress soul became denser and denser. Vulture's face became pale, and its delicate body was on the verge of collapsing. Finally, everything was over. The Sea Snake Empress figure was completely condensed. She was really beautiful to the extreme. She was completely at the top of the pyramid of women in the world, surpassing the Mermaid Queen and President Nehru. She was on par with the Naga Shuang. Of course, this kind of beauty was not something that could be enjoyed by humans. This was because she was more than 10 meters tall. Although she was not as tall as the previous fossils, her lower body was completely a snake's body. Yang Dingtian discovered that it was actually a golden snake's body. As expected of the Sea Serpent Empire, the Sea Snake Empress slowly opened her beautiful eyes. Her pupils were also golden, and even the gaze that shot out was golden. At this moment, Vulture groaned and fainted. Yang Dingtian hurriedly went forward and hugged her. The Sea Snake Empress's gaze was scattered at first, then it focused bit by bit. This was because it was as if she had been sleeping for more than 10,000 years. When her gaze was completely focused, it landed on Yang Dingtian's face. A dangerous aura began to condense, and in the end, it turned from danger to killing intent. It was impossible to resist, because the Sea Snake Empress's cultivation was countless times higher than Yang Dingtian's. Almost instantly, Yang Dingtian's profound veins and qi were completely sealed. He was unable to use any profound qi, nor was he able to move at all. Whiz! The Sea Snake Empress suddenly stepped forward and said coldly, "It was actually 2 humans who summoned me?" Then, when she saw that her fossil had actually disappeared, she immediately flew into a rage and said, "A mere human dares to harm my body. You're courting death." Then, she suddenly stretched out her sharp claws, and actually wanted to claw Yang Dingtian and Vulture to death. Yang Dingtian was shocked. These races really treated humans like cats and dogs. They could casually kill humans like stepping on ants. Yang Dingtian was unable to move, unable to resist or escape. However, he had the Naga royalty sword spirit. Whiz! 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 The golden sword spirit shot out, but it did not attack the Sea Snake Empress. Instead, it completely enveloped his and Vulture's bodies. He was afraid that the power of the Naga royalty would be too destructive to the Sea Snake clan. The moment she saw the Naga royalty sword spirit, the Sea Snake Empress was shocked and looked at Yang Dingtian in disbelief. This was a human. How could he release the power of the Naga royalty? To the Sea Snake clan, Naga was the sky, the god, and the fear in the depths of their souls. At that moment, the Sea Snake Empress left and released Yang Dingtian's imprisonment. Then she said, "Human, you shattered my body and summoned my soul to revive. What are your intentions?" Yang Dingtian said, "First of all, I am Naga's husband. Secondly, this Naga Duga Shuang comes from your bloodline, born from your daughter Poisa." "Poisa? My successor, she is still alive and gave birth to Naga?" The Sea Snake Empress said in disbelief. because every generation of the Sea Snake Empress was considered a next-generation Naga. She could choose to mate with a male next-generation Naga and still give birth to a next-generation Naga. She could also mate with a human and give birth to a real Naga. However, the Sea Snake clan had not given birth to a real Naga for many years. The reason was that the Naga Empire did not open up the quota. Of course, there was another reason. Since tens of thousands of years ago, there had not been many humans who could make Naga go into estrus. Now her daughter Poisa had actually given birth to a real Naga? How was this possible? In order to stop the Great Nirvana extinction, the Naga clan had even destroyed the Sea Serpent Empire and the Mermaid Empire. How could they allow a new Naga to be born? The Sea Snake Empress voiced her doubts. Your Majesty, more than 10,000 years have passed. The world has been destroyed, and the Naga Empire has been destroyed. Yang Dingtian explained everything. After a full quarter of an hour, he finally finished explaining everything. The Sea Snake Empress was stunned for a full quarter of an hour. Finally, she muttered to herself, the Naga Empire was destroyed? It was actually destroyed. How is this possible? How is this possible? The destruction of the Naga Empire was completely subversive to the Sea Snake Empress. Although the Naga clan had destroyed the Sea Serpent Empire, the Sea Snake Empress did not have much hatred because in the hearts of the Sea Serpent clan, Naga was their faith, their totem, and everything. At that time, the Naga clan had destroyed the Sea Serpent Empire and the Mermaid Empire for the sake of the continuation of the demigod Naga civilization. Although it was terrifying and painful, the Sea Serpent clan understood it in their hearts. Now that she heard that the Naga Empire had been destroyed, the Sea Snake Empress's inner world collapsed. So the one that Poisa gave birth to can be considered the last Naga? The Sea Snake Empress said. Yang Dingtian, you can say that. The Sea Snake Empress said. This Naga is your wife? Yes. Yang Dingtian, the Sea Snake Empress said. What proof do you have? Yang Dingtian, come over and smell the energy aura on my body. The Sea Snake Empress stepped forward and sniffed lightly. Her figure suddenly trembled as she said, as expected, as expected. Then the Sea Snake Empress said, then why did you go to Naga? Yang Dingtian, to save this world. The Sea Snake Empress said, could it be that this world is going to be destroyed again? Yang Dingtian nodded. The Sea Snake Empress said, your Naga wife is in the Naga Empire. Do you want me to open the energy channel for you? Yes. Yang Dingtian, your daughter Poisa is also in the ruins of the old Naga Empire. For some special reason, they can't come back. The Sea Snake Empress said, they can't come back because the Naga Empire has been destroyed, so the energy channel entrance over there has been destroyed. This means that once you go over, you won't be able to come back. Now, do you still have a past? Yang Dingtian nodded. All right, I'm willing to fulfill your wish. The Sea Snake Empress said, raise the crystal ball. Yang Dingtian raised it high. The soul of the Sea Snake Empress stretched out her jade-like hand and placed it on the crystal ball. Suddenly, the light in the crystal ball condensed, and the entire hall darkened. Only the crystal ball emitted a dazzling light. It was incomparably beautiful and filled with a mysterious aura. Then, Yang Dingtian widened his eyes and waited for the energy channel to open to the ruins of the Naga Empire. However, this did not happen. Instead, the light of the crystal ball gradually dimmed and finally disappeared without a trace. The hall regained its light, and there was no sign of the energy channel. Yang Dingtian was momentarily stunned. He didn't know why this was happening. Could it be that because you lost your body, the crystal ball can't sense the power of your bloodline? Yang Dingtian asked. The Sea Snake Empress shook her head and said, the crystal ball senses an energy aura and soul. It doesn't need a body. Then why is that? Could it be that this energy channel has been destroyed? This means that Naga and Poisa didn't go to the ruins of the old Naga Empire? Yang Dingtian was extremely disappointed. He was not afraid of going to the ends of the earth, but he was afraid of not having a destination. The Sea Snake Empress still shook her head and said, that's not the reason. On the contrary, I'm now certain that at least Poisa is in the ruins of the old Naga Empire. Why? Yang Dingtian asked. The Sea Snake Empress said. Because I'm no longer the Empress of the Sea Serpent Empire. Poisa is, so she can open the energy channel. Any Naga can do it, but I can't. Young Dingtian was stunned. Poisa had never been to the Sea Serpent Empire before. And there was no inheritance ceremony. How did the crystal ball know that she was the new Sea Snake Empress? The Sea Snake Empress said. According to the laws of the Naga Empire and the Sea Serpent Empire, once a female in the royal family of a certain generation gives birth to Naga, she will immediately inherit the throne of the previous generation of the Sea Serpent Empire. Poisa gave birth to Naga, so she has automatically become the Empress of the Sea Serpent Empire. So that's how it is. Young Dingtian was stunned. The Sea Snake Empress said. So other than Naga, no one can open this energy channel. There were two Naga in this world. One was Medusa, and the other was Shiman Ningning. However, it was impossible for these two to open it. Of course, there was a third Naga, but she was still in the belly of the Mermaid Queen. She was young Dingtian's baby. He did not know how long it would take for her to be born, but it would definitely be more than 5 months. Young Dingtian asked, Your Majesty, is there any other way to enter the ruins of the old Naga Empire other than the energy channel? Impossible. The Sea Snake Empress said directly. The Naga Empire has completely isolated itself. It has created countless energy barriers, countless dark abyss, countless void worlds, and countless elemental worlds. Young Dingtian said. It just so happens that I know space magic, so I can pass through any barrier. Space magic? The Sea Snake Empress suddenly revealed a look of disbelief. Space magic was the crown of the martial arts civilization in the Chaos world. The Naga Empire had spent countless years, and still could not take off the crown of the martial arts civilization. This young Dingtian in front of her was just a mere human. How could he know space magic? Young Dingtian said. This space magic was completed by my Taoist priest, Shiwu Piaoyan, and the sage of the Naga Empire. I just sat back and enjoyed the fruits of their labor. That savior, the powerful savior, he is your teacher? No wonder. The Sea Snake Empress said. Shiwu Piaoyan was indeed famous in the world and history. The Sea Snake Empress also knew about it. Then the Sea Snake Empress said. Having the space magic is still not enough. There are many dark abyss, energy storms, and elemental worlds. Young Dingtian said. I also have the void flame, which can purify the dark abyss. This Shura vulture beside me is the most powerful celestial spirit master. He can control powerful elemental creatures. As long as we have a direction, we can go anywhere. Immediately, after looking at young Dingtian's face for a long time, the Sea Snake Empress was stunned and said, Human young Dingtian, perhaps you are the real savior. Okay, I will show you the way to the ruins of the old Naga Empire. Young Dingtian could not help but be overjoyed. Chapter 1108. The Sea Snake Empress waved her hand gently, and a piece of energy paper flew in front of her. Then, she raised her hand as if she wanted to draw something, such as a map or something. In the end, she found that she could not draw it, because it was not something that could be drawn on a plane. Who knew how many spaces, planes, and barriers were crossed in between? Especially after the ancient Great Nirvana, many spaces were distorted to an unknown extent. Thus, the Sea Snake Empress could only say, Go west, keep going west. Of course, the west I'm talking about is not the pure west. You should understand. In short, the closer we get to the Naga Empire, the more barren, the less energy there is, the less life there is, and the more distorted the world is. After saying that, the Sea Snake Empress thought for a long time and said, All right, that's all the information I can give you, because even I have never been to the Naga Empire. Young Dingtian nodded and bowed. Thank you, Your Majesty. Next, the Sea Snake Empress drew something. This map is not a direction or a map, but some signs that you will pass on the way to the Naga Empire. When you see these signs, you will know that you are not going the wrong way. The Sea Snake Empress flew out of the hall and said, I'm going to find another place to rest. You guys can leave after you've rested. Yes, Young Dingtian. Young Dingtian took the map. This ancient Sea Snake Empress was still not used to living in the same space as humans. Yang Dingtian sat down cross-legged and recovered his mystic qi. The most important thing was the Shura vulture. His spiritual power could only be fully recovered through meditation. There was no room for tricks in this regard. Almost a day and a night later, Vulture finished meditating, and her spiritual power had completely recovered. Of course, she had also overdrawn her spiritual power. In the Doomsday battle, Vulture had to recuperate for a few days and nights. But now, she only needed 1 day and night. This wasn't because the spirit Vulture had become more powerful, but because she had concentrated on her meditation. Then, the two of them flew west in the ruins. They did not bid farewell to the Sea Snake Empress. Of course, Yang Dingtian still had some fantasies. Since the ancient Sea Snake Empress was so powerful, could she help deal with the Demon King? However, he quickly gave up on this idea, because the Sea Snake Empress's soul energy would probably turn into ashes once it left the ruins of the Devil Capital. Of course, there was also the possibility of possession. However, her energy was so strong that no body could withstand it. Most importantly, she was not willing to have too many entanglements with humans, even if this person was Yang Dingtian. In fact, she was also dissatisfied with the fact that her body had been turned into a fossil. Yang Dingtian and the vulture headed west. After a few thousand miles, the ruins of the Devil Capital City came to an end. What he saw was yet another boundless dark matter that completely enveloped the entire space. Yang Dingtian took out the eye of the primeval Naga and dissolved the dark matter. Then the two of them flew in. Once they entered the dark matter, it was as if it was endless. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. For days, Yang Dingtian and Vulture kept shuttling through the dark matter, and they really felt like they were about to collapse. Finally, the 5th day arrived. After flying for tens of thousands of miles, the scenery in front of them suddenly changed. It was no longer dark matter, but a distorted energy wall. If he guessed correctly, they should have reached the end of the Sea Serpent Empire. Yang Dingtian had never seen this distorted energy wall before. When the space was torn apart, the energy wall had also been distorted. However, at least it was still relatively stable. The energy walls did not destroy, devour, or intertwine with each other. At this moment, the energy walls that Yang Dingtian saw were constantly destroying and devouring each other. Therefore, not only was the color of the energy wall changing, but even its shape and structure were also constantly changing. Yang Dingtian really did not know if the spatial door would be useful if it was attached to such an energy wall. If he jumped over, would he be directly torn to pieces? Yang Dingtian was not in a hurry to open the spatial door and jump over. Instead, he searched around for a relatively flat energy wall. After searching for a few hours, there was not a single stable energy wall. All of them were this shocking. Taking a deep breath, Yang Dingtian created a spatial door on such an energy wall. That's right, even the spatial door had begun to distort. Moreover, the consumption of mystical qi energy had increased by many times. Yang Dingtian held Shura's hand, gritted his teeth, and then jumped over. Of course, he went over one after the other, not at the same time. This was because the highest energy in the spatial door was Yang Dingtian. It could not accommodate 2 people at the same time. After jumping over the spatial door, Yang Dingtian was ready for any time. Even if the scene in front of him was terrifying and dangerous, he would never flinch. But now Yang Dingtian regretted not asking Shiwu Piaoyan how to get from the Sea Serpent Empire to the Naga Empire when he was practicing the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship. Because Shiwu Piaoyan had walked this path. After jumping into the new space, Yang Dingtian opened his eyes immediately. What? There was nothing. That's right, it was a real and completely dark void. There was no air, no light, no energy, no matter, and of course no life. It was a complete void. Moreover, this was not a simple cosmic starry sky, but a void that still existed inside the chaotic world. Because when he looked up, he could not see any stars, nor were there 2 moons and 2 suns. There was nothing, not even a ray of light. Yang Dingtian lit up the mysterious fire, and finally there was a light in the complete darkness. However, there was still nothing around him. Vulture could not help but step forward, get closer to Yang Dingtian, and then grab his arm. This kind of environment made her a little uneasy. Yang Dingtian held her hand and said, "Can you feel any energy aura?" Even speaking had to be directly transmitted to her ears with energy. Vulture shook her head and said, "Nothing, not even a speck of dust." "That's good," Yang Dingtian said. "Let's go." Yang Dingtian nodded, and then flew to the west with the mysterious fire behind him. In this complete void, there was no gravity, no resistance, and the speed of flight was shockingly fast. He could easily reach tens of thousands of kilometers in an hour, which was many times faster than the human countries. Moreover, the energy level of the mysterious fire was very low, and the consumption of qi was very small. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Like a bolt of lightning, a streak of light streaked across the dark void. Yang Dingtian kept flying to the west. 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours. 3 days and 3 nights had passed. They should have flown more than 700,000 kilometers. Everything around was still an endless void, and there was no end to it. How is this possible? The space of the entire chaotic world was only about 1,000,000 miles. More than 700,000 kilometers. They should have rushed out of the chaotic world. What the hell was going on? Yang Dingtian was surprised. Then, Yang Dingtian stopped, opened a space door, and then jumped over with Vulture. However, it was still a dark void. Yang Dingtian opened space doors in different directions and jumped over. But the result was the same. He did not even know if the space door had reached another place, or if it was still in the same place. Because everything around him was always the same. So Yang Dingtian took out a pair of sunglasses and put it in the space. Then, he opened a space door and jumped over. In the end, he found that the sunglasses were still beside him. It did not jump through a space door. It could be seen that Yang Dingtian had jumped through many space doors, but they were still far away. Then this was not a folded space, not a duplicated space, but a real space. However, how could there be such a big space in the chaotic world? Helpless, Yang Dingtian and Vulture continued to fly toward the west. After flying for a few more days and nights, this time, they flew a full 1,000,000 kilometers. It was already 3 times the distance between Earth and the Moon. In this space, the flying speed was too fast. However, they still could not see the end of the dark void. Yang Dingtian was really about to break down. This did not make sense. The space of the entire chaotic world was more than 1,000,000 miles. And now, in this dark void, Yang Dingtian had flown nearly 2,000,000 kilometers, but he still had not left. Why was this? Flying aimlessly like this was not okay. Yang Dingtian sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes to think. Why did this happen? Yang Dingtian began to recall all the books he had read in the library of the High Priest Association. No, not enough. The academic level of the High Priest Association might not be able to reach the level of the dark void in front of him. Yang Dingtian began to recall the books he had read in the library of New Naga. Of course, most of the books there were sealed and could not be seen. Only the title of the book could be seen. Yang Dingtian recalled carefully. He even began to enter deep meditation, and went to his brain to replay the scene in the library of New Naga. Immediately, the scene at that time was displayed almost frame by frame, almost without any missing. At that time, Yang Dingtian was looking for the 5th stage of the pig-slaying swordsmanship, so he only glanced through most of the books. It was difficult to remember the titles of these books just by relying on his memory, because he did not deliberately read them. However, his eyes and brain still faithfully remembered the scene at that time, even if Yang Dingtian's mind was not there at that time. Therefore, these things were collectively known as invalid memories. They existed in his mind, but he could not remember them. Found it. In the meditation world, in the playback of the scene at that time, Yang Dingtian saw the title of this book, From Matter to Space. Unfortunately, he did not read the contents inside. Moreover, very coincidentally, this book was not imprisoned and could be made public. How could Yang Dingtian have thought of today's situation that day? So of course, he would not deliberately read it. Now, it was impossible to read it in the meditation world, because there was no specific information and data of this book in his mind. Yang Dingtian stared at the cover. This cover was dynamic. Yes, in the library of New Naga, many covers were dynamic. On the screen, an irregular energy body the size of a fingernail suddenly exploded because of some effect. In an instant, it turned into a space of nothingness. Then this space continued to expanded to the extreme, to the point where there was almost no energy at all. Bang! This matter completely disappeared, turning into ashes in the universe. In the chaotic world, no trace of this matter could be found. It turned into some kind of energy ray, or wave band, or power, and directly left the chaotic world. Yang Dingtian understood. Although he did not read the specific content of this book, he could roughly guess from the cover. Because of very, very special reasons, it caused a certain matter, or even a certain space, to suddenly explode and turn into a space of nothingness, constantly expanding. In the cover of that book, a fingernail-sized energy substance could expand into a space of nothingness hundreds of miles. Then, if it was a very large energy substance, or even a space, that suddenly exploded and turned into a space of nothingness, then, how much space would it expand into only God knew. But what was certain was that this energy substance was definitely greater than the energy of Yang Dingtian and Dishi Bian combined, or even much greater. Otherwise, the moment Yang Dingtian and Vulture entered the space of nothingness, it would collapse and be destroyed. In this case, it was really troublesome, because this space could be hundreds of millions, or even billions of kilometers in diameter. Yes, it was still within the chaotic world, but it was already an independent plane. Its spatial calculation was no longer consistent with that of the chaotic world. It was purely a space of nothingness, and it was possible to be any size. According to the calculation of the cover, a fingernail-sized energy substance, after completely transforming into nothingness, would have a diameter of hundreds of kilometers. In other words, 1 centimeter would become hundreds of thousands of meters, which was tens of millions of times. Then, who knew what this space of nothingness was made of? If they were lucky, it might just be a magic tool, or a demon core of some demigod Naga. Then its actual space was less than a foot. Yang Dingtian had stepped on dog shit luck to rush into this dark space of nothingness. And even if they were lucky, this was a demon core of demigod Naga. Then, with its energy, the space of nothingness that would expand in the end might, probably perhaps, be billions of kilometers in diameter, or even larger. Damn, how big was the solar system? Of course, the two could not be mentioned in the same breath. The solar system was a cosmic space. And this space was already a fucking internal energy space. The most frightening thing was that this space was constantly expanding. If Yang Dingtian's flying speed was not as fast as its expansion speed, then it would be a total disaster. Then it would be a complete tragedy. They would never be able to come out. If they wanted to come out, they would have to wait for the space of nothingness to explode and be destroyed. That would take hundreds of years, or even thousands of years. Of course, when it exploded, it might also tear Yang Dingtian into pieces. Was there a way? Maybe there was, but it was definitely not something that Yang Dingtian, with his current level of intelligence, could think of. The most direct way was to directly destroy this space. As long as the energy level exceeded this space, it would be destroyed. However, it was so huge, and it was at least the demon core of demigod Naga. Yang Dingtian was probably dreaming if he wanted to destroy it. However, Yang Dingtian had the demon core of Naga royalty, and also the sword soul of Naga royalty. Immediately, Yang Dingtian took out a soul sword that was close to the emperor grade from his space ring. There were no changes. He had to speed up. Previously, he thought that 10,000 kilometers per hour was fast enough. But now, it seemed that it was not enough. Yang Dingtian carried the spirit vulture and stepped on the emperor-grade soul sword. Anyway, there was no gravity in this space of nothingness, and there were no obstacles. Speed was absolute, and it would not slow down with more weight. Yang Dingtian ordered in his consciousness. Whoosh! Immediately, the soul sword flew out like a bolt of lightning. Really fast to the extreme. It was not 10,000 kilometers per hour, or tens of thousands of kilometers per hour. It was hundreds of thousands of kilometers per hour. Of course, this was a space of nothingness. Under such speed, there would not be any huge friction or compression, and it would not cause any harm to the body. If this was a human country, most people would not be able to withstand such speed. Even a demigod would not be able to withstand it. Even Yang Dingtian needed to release the vengeful spirit of the million spirits' demonic fire to test his speed. This was because there was no reference. Whoosh 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 whoosh, under the crazy flight. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, it was still an endless void of nothingness. He did not know how far he had flown. At least tens of millions of kilometers, but it felt like there was no end in sight. However, a surprise would always appear at some point. Whoosh, all of a sudden, Yang Dingtian saw a change. This change was very subtle because their speed had slowed down. At first, Yang Dingtian was worried that the soul sword had run out of celestial qi. This was because there was not much celestial qi left in the Naga royalty demonic core. But soon, Yang Dingtian was ecstatic. This was because although there was not much celestial qi left in the Naga royalty sword soul, it was more than enough to support such a flight. Not to mention a few days and nights. It would not be used up even if it was a few years. There was only one reason why the speed had slowed down. That was, he had reached the boundary of this space of nothingness. Because this space of nothingness had been expanding, the boundary at the boundary was also expanding rapidly. However, the speed of the soul sword had exceeded the expansion speed of the space of nothingness. Therefore, it seemed that the soul sword had slowed down. In fact, it was blocked by the boundary. The current speed was actually the expansion speed of the space of nothingness. Every hour, it was about 12,000 kilometers. Fortunately, Yang Dingtian used the soul sword to fly. If he used the previous mystic fire, he would never be able to come out. Now Yang Dingtian was flying close to the boundary of the space of nothingness at all times. Therefore, he used the dark mystic fire to create an isolated space and a space door. In less than a second, the space door was completed. Yang Dingtian was very surprised. In the human countries, the fastest time was more than 2.5 seconds. But now it was less than a second. Soon Yang Dingtian understood the reason. Because this was a dark space of nothingness, it was similar to an isolated space. There was almost no energy and impurities. Therefore, the process of the black hole devouring was very short and almost completely unnecessary. Therefore, the creation of the space door was so fast. After the space door was completed, the energy that Yang Dingtian used to maintain the space door was very little. It was time to go. Yang Dingtian took Vulture's hand and jumped into the space door. Whoosh! When Yang Dingtian opened his eyes, he had already entered another space. Wow, what a beautiful space! Spirit Vulture even cried out in alarm. Because in this space, although it was still nothingness, however there was light, and it was a kind of gentle light. Just like in the movies on Earth, whenever the immortals appeared, or when the elves appeared in the Western movies, they would be shrouded in a layer of holy light. It seemed milky white, but also seemed like golden yellow. In short, it gave people an incomparably beautiful feeling. The whole world was filled with this kind of light. Moreover, there was air and mystic qi here. Breathing was also very smooth. The concentration of mystic qi here was higher than that of the human countries and little Western paradise. Yang Dingtian held Vulture's hand and continued to fly towards the west. In this space full of divine light, flying seemed to be a romantic time. Yang Dingtian didn't fly for long. Only a few hours later, he found the light source of the entire space. There was something that seemed to be standing in the center of the space, emitting this wonderful and mysterious light. And under the light, it couldn't be seen clearly. Just like how humans couldn't see the sun clearly. Although this light was far less dazzling than the sun, it couldn't be seen clearly. And in this space, this thing should be equivalent to the sun. Yang Dingtian flew towards this mysterious thing. His speed was getting faster and faster. He flew for tens of thousands of miles, hundreds of thousands of miles. Finally, he was getting closer and closer to the sun of this space. Its figure was also getting taller and taller. However, the closer he was, the stronger the light was, and the more he couldn't see clearly. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian remembered that he was wearing sunglasses. So, he took out his sunglasses and put them on. He took a closer look. Suddenly, he was completely stunned. The source of this light, this sun, wasn't something? It was a person. Oh, to be precise, it was a naga. A naga that was covered in golden yellow. A naga that was so beautiful that it could crush heaven and earth. A naga that was even more beautiful than Saint Tantai and Dugu Shuang. This naga was covered in golden yellow. This meant that she was the royal family of naga. Secondly, the special energy patterns on this naga's neck meant that she was a spiritual type naga. The spiritual type naga royalty. Then there was only one identity. Medusa Naga. That's right, Queen Medusa. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian was completely shocked. In this space of divine light, Queen Medusa had actually become the sun of this space. Vulture, who was beside him, was also completely stunned. After being stunned for a long time, Yang Dingtian flew quickly toward Queen Medusa. Chapter 1109. In this void world filled with divine light, Yang Dingtian flew quickly, getting closer and closer to Queen Medusa. And Queen Medusa's body grew bigger and bigger, until it was bigger than a huge mountain. Not only that, as Yang Dingtian got closer, he could feel an extremely strong celestial chi energy. The closer he got to Queen Medusa, the higher the concentration of celestial chi. Moreover, this was pure celestial chi that could be directly swallowed into one's energy reserve to raise one's cultivation. There was almost no need to purify it. The concentration was getting higher and higher, and the source of this celestial chi seemed to be completely from Queen Medusa. Husband, the celestial chi concentration here is so high. It's many times higher than in the human countries, Vulture suddenly said. It was close to 100 times. Yang Dingtian had already calculated in his heart. 100 times higher celestial chi concentration. And the closer he got to Queen Medusa, the higher the celestial chi concentration was. It was like getting closer to the sun. The light became stronger and hotter. However, the sun here was Queen Medusa. What she released was not light and heat, but the purest energy. As Yang Dingtian got closer, the celestial chi concentration was so high that it was unbelievable. Vulture even whispered, "Husband, I'm afraid it won't take long for you to cultivate to the saint level here." The celestial chi concentration here was enough to break through to the saint level. And as he got closer to Queen Medusa, the celestial chi concentration here was even higher than the floating palace in the Skull Hall. And most importantly, the celestial chi here seemed to be endless. However, Yang Dingtian quickly let go of this tempting thought. Because to him, there was only one question. Could he cultivate to the demigod level here? It was impossible. Not in 100 years, not in 1,000 years. Moreover, with Yang Dingtian's current celestial chi and talent, it was impossible for him to reach the demigod level. If he could not reach the demigod level and defeat the demon king, then even if he cultivated to the peak of the saint level, it would be useless. Therefore, Yang Dingtian ignored all of this and continued flying. It was strange. Queen Medusa didn't look that far away. How could she fly so far? Yang Dingtian had already flown for tens of thousands of miles. He could clearly feel that he was getting closer and closer, but it felt as if he would never be able to reach it. Suddenly Vulture said, "Husband, look." Yang Dingtian turned around. In this space, Yang Dingtian and Vulture were not the only travelers. At this moment, a purple phoenix flew past Yang Dingtian. This purple phoenix was even more gorgeous than the magic fire demon phoenix that Yang Dingtian had seen before. Its size was also much larger. It was very far away from Yang Dingtian, more than a few hundred miles away. However, Yang Dingtian could already feel its powerful aura. Without a doubt, this purple phoenix's cultivation had surpassed the saint level. Even though the purple phoenix was filled with wariness and hostility, it didn't fly over. Instead, it flew faster and faster. It flew desperately towards Queen Medusa. This was the first one. Then, Yang Dingtian saw the second one. This time, It was a demon beast similar to an owl. However, it was much prettier and sharper than the night owl. Moreover, this was a pure energy creature. When it flew, its wings flashed with electric light. The air it flew through turned into the unique blue of electric energy. This was another demon beast that surpassed the saint level, and it was also an energy demon beast. There was a second one, and soon there was a third one. The third one was very small in size, only dozens of meters long. It caught up from Yang Dingtian's right rear. This was actually a purple Qilin beast. After so many years in the human countries, Yang Dingtian had almost never seen a living Qilin beast. The Council of Light had a lot of Qilin beast cores, but they were basically excavated from the ruins of the ancient world. Therefore, the Council of Light generally believed that the Qilin beast had gone extinct. He didn't expect to see a living Qilin beast at this time. He really didn't know where they lived before. And without a doubt, this Qilin beast's cultivation had also surpassed the saint level. When it passed by Yang Dingtian, it was less than a few hundred meters away. Yang Dingtian could clearly feel the incomparably powerful aura on its body. It was enough to tear him and Vulture to pieces. This was because the saint-level demon beasts had much more energy than the saint-level human beings. However, it only glanced at Yang Dingtian and Vulture. After snorting, it continued to fly towards Queen Medusa. Just like this, more and more demon beasts caught up with Yang Dingtian from behind. They overtook Yang Dingtian and flew towards Queen Medusa. In the end, there were hundreds of them densely packed together. There were all kinds of demon beasts, and more than half of them were energy beasts. Moreover, there were rarely more than 2 of the same kind. Therefore, although there were many of these saint-level demon beasts, there were still very few of them in the end. Basically, they had all gone extinct in the Great Nirvana and the decline of the entire chaotic world. Yang Dingtian was very fast, but he could no longer catch up with them. Of course, if he used the soul sword, he might be able to catch up. However, this group of saint-level demon beasts was very crazy now. If he rashly entered, he was afraid that he would offend them. Moreover, Yang Dingtian really wanted to know why this group of saint-level demon beasts was flying towards Queen Medusa, as if they were on a pilgrimage. What did they want? Once again, Yang Dingtian flew very far away. He was a little closer to Queen Medusa. At this time, he could clearly see that Queen Medusa was already incomparably huge, far bigger than any mountains and rivers in the human countries. It was even more than tens of thousands of meters in size. At this time, thousands of saint-level demon beasts had already heard. They floated in front of Queen Medusa and let out incomparably fanatical cries. Then, Yang Dingtian suddenly felt that the world around him was getting brighter and brighter, brighter and brighter. It seemed that this light was coming from Queen Medusa's eyes. Queen Medusa's eyes, once shot by her gaze, would turn one into a fossil. At that time, the Sea Serpent Empire and the Mermaid Empire were destroyed in this way. Therefore, Yang Dingtian immediately pulled Vulture and used the invisibility technique to disappear from this space. Then, he clearly felt that the whole world was getting brighter and brighter, stronger and stronger. Countless demon beasts became more and more fanatical, and in the end, they were almost crazy. At the same time, the Xianqi in this world was getting denser and denser. From 300 times in the human countries, it became 500 times, 1,000 times, 3,000 times. Yang Dingtian was completely stunned. Even at the peak of the martial arts civilization, there was no Xianqi density of 3,000 times. This was crazy. Moreover, this was only the distance from where Yang Dingtian was, and it was still relatively far. If he was next to Queen Medusa, how many times would the Xianqi density be compared to the human countries? It was completely unimaginable. Therefore, if he was next to Queen Medusa, with the level of Yang Dingtian's Xian veins, it would only take a few days for his sea of energy to break through to the saint level. Was there anything scarier in this world than this? He could break through to the saint level just by relying on normal cultivation. Moreover, with the current Xianqi density, it could completely balance the energy pressure of the sea of energy. This was a heavenly land of treasures. At this time, Vulture could not help but say, Husband, go quickly. If you are next to Queen Medusa, I'm afraid you will break through to the saint level in a few days. Moreover, her eyes did not turn you into a fossil. Indeed, it did not. At this time, Queen Medusa's eyes were getting brighter and brighter. The light in this world had reached the extreme, almost making it impossible for people to look straight at it, as if they were going blind. At the very least, countless demonic beasts were completely shrouded in the white light, almost unable to see clearly. Moreover, the xianqi density was still rising. If he guessed correctly, the xianqi density around Queen Medusa was probably tens of thousands of times higher than that of the human countries. At this time, even if one did not take the initiative to swallow it, if the xianqi density exceeded the sea of energy by too much, it would automatically enter one's body and sea of energy. One could even increase one's cultivation without cultivating. With such a terrifying xianqi density, Yang Dingtian would really break through to the saint level very soon. One must know that he was now only half a step away from the saint level. Vulture was already intoxicated, and said in a trembling voice, "Husband, go quickly. The xianqi density is getting higher and higher. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you miss it, you won't have another chance. Now in a few days, maybe a few hours, you will be able to break through to the saint level." At this time, Yang Dingtian was really very tempted to be able to break through to the saint level in just a few hours. It was really a wonderful thing. Now he also understood why these demonic beasts at the saint level, which were on the verge of extinction, gathered around Queen Medusa like crazy on a pilgrimage. It was because they were crazily swallowing the xianqi. For them, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to break through. Even from a distance, Yang Dingtian could feel that the cultivation of these demonic beasts at the saint level was rapidly increasing. Really, this was a great bargain. If they could break through to the saint level in just a few hours, that would be wonderful. However, at this time, suddenly, Queen Medusa's eyes lit up to the extreme, like the light of a nuclear explosion, countless times brighter than the light of the two suns. Then, all the demonic beasts at the saint level disappeared from sight in an instant. All of them turned into ashes. Thousands of demonic beasts at the saint level disappeared without a trace in an instant. Yang Dingtian and Vulture were completely stunned. Vulture's hair stood on end, and she couldn't help but tremble violently. Just a moment ago, she was still trying to persuade Yang Dingtian to go and take advantage of the situation. If he really went, he would have been turned into ashes by now. However, just as Yang Dingtian was feeling very lucky, suddenly, Queen Medusa's beautiful eyes looked at Yang Dingtian and said, "Human Yang Dingtian, right? Come here. I am Shiman Ningning's mother." Suddenly, Yang Dingtian trembled. Chapter 11:10. Shiman Ningning's mother? The face of Queen Medusa in front of him was extremely beautiful, but also dreamlike. But in short, she didn't look like Shiman Ningning. Although Sister Ningning looked good and was very delicate, she was definitely not a stunning beauty. In terms of pure appearance, she was even worse than Shiman Yinyan. She didn't look like Queen Medusa at all. Of course, there was only one Queen Medusa in the whole world now. According to Yang Dingtian's guess, this only Medusa was Sister Ningning's mother. However, in the ancient Naga Empire, there was more than one Medusa. Of course, they were also very rare. At most, there were only 3 Medusa in the Naga Empire. And this Queen Medusa in front of him was more than tens of thousands of meters tall. Therefore, Yang Dingtian felt that this was not a real person, but a relic, a sculpture or something like that. Unexpectedly, the other party actually spoke to him and said that she was Shiman Ningning's mother. Then, she was the only remaining Queen Medusa in the world. The only surviving Naga? Where was this Medusa? It should be one of the ultimate secrets of this world. She should be in existence second only to the god of chaos. According to many people's guesses, Queen Medusa should be the master of the soul-leaving palace. Then could this be the soul-leaving palace? It didn't seem like it. Come over, human Yang Dingtian. Let me take a good look at what kind of human you are. You actually managed to steal my daughter's soul, Queen Medusa said. As you can see, there is an extremely dense chi energy around me. I can easily let you break through to the saint level or even higher. Come here. Young Dingtian was still in the isolated space. He sneered and said, Stop dreaming. You are using extremely dense mystic chi to attract these saint-class demonic beasts. After which, you are going to devour all of their energy to nourish yourself. After I go, I'm afraid I'll be turned into ashes in an instant. How petty, Queen Medusa said. I am the sun of this world, the ultimate faith of this world. These phoenixes bullied me, but they all admire me and worship me. They are my people. Of course I have to give them energy, once every 1,000 years. Your luck is very good. Do you want to miss this once in a 1,000 years bestowment conference? I can easily help you break through to the peak of the saint level. Then, the light in Queen Medusa's eyes gradually dimmed, returning to normal. She smiled and said, You said I devoured the energy of these saint realm demonic beasts. Then what are these demonic beasts in front of me? After the incomparably dazzling light dimmed, young Dingtian once again saw the thousands of saint-level demon beasts. Every one of them seemed to have broken through a lot in their cultivation. They all knelt before Queen Medusa in the void to express their gratitude. None of them had died, nor had they been reduced to ashes. It was just that the light just now was too strong, causing them to completely disappear from Yang Dingtian's field of vision. Then Queen Medusa sneered. Besides, do you think I called you here to devour your energy? The energy of the two of you added together is like dust. Do you think I'm bluffing in order to devour your energy? You think too highly of yourself. Yang Dingtian nodded and thought for a while, but he felt that it made sense. If she really wanted to devour his energy, Queen Medusa probably didn't care about his energy at all. However, Yang Dingtian still didn't leave the invisible space. Queen Medusa smiled and said, Yang Dingtian, don't you want to see your dream girl Shimin Ningning? Suddenly, Yang Dingtian trembled. Then, a figure suddenly appeared under Queen Medusa. It was the familiar Shimin Ningning. She was still so delicate and gentle. Her eyes were filled with endless gentleness when she looked at Yang Dingtian. Yes, it was this kind of gentle gaze. She wasn't his wife, but she was gentler and more loving than his wife. At that time, it was this kind of tolerance and gentleness that washed away all the hostility in Yang Dingtian's heart and turned him into a bright and upright person. Therefore, although the time they spent together was short, Shimin Ningning was the woman who had the greatest impact on Yang Dingtian. Seeing this familiar face and those familiar eyes, Su Qingsang was stunned. Yang Dingtian's heart melted all of a sudden. Then, he instinctively stretched out his hand to touch her from a distance, instinctively wanting to walk out of the invisible space. Husband, is this Sister Ningning? Vulture asked from the side. Yes. Yang Dingtian replied. Vulture said, I heard that she was imprisoned by her mother. At this time, Shimin Ningning said softly to Yang Dingtian, Little Tian, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but ask, Sister Ningning, have you been waiting for me? Shimin Ningning nodded and said, Mother said that if you can find me one day, it means that you are qualified to be with me. But, how difficult is it to find this place? I didn't expect that in just a few years, you have already found me. Yang Dingtian was surprised and looked at Queen Medusa. Queen Medusa nodded and said, Yes, Shimin Ningning is my daughter. We Naga people are absolutely loyal to our partners, and will never change. So, do you think I will watch my daughter live alone? Since you have the ability to come here, then you are my son-in-law. I will fulfill everything you want. Fulfill everything? Yang Dingtian was surprised. Could it be that this included asking him to defeat Demon King Wentian? Yes, including defeating the so-called the Demon King Wentian, Queen Medusa said. Yang Dingtian was shocked. This Queen Medusa seemed to know what he was thinking. However, the Demon King Wentian was close to becoming a demigod, and had the Chaos Emperor armor. How strong was he? Unless Medusa personally made a move, if Yang Dingtian were to rely on himself. No, I can't do it myself, Queen Medusa said. She is also my believer. I can't kill my believer. However, you can do it yourself. Although the Chaos Emperor armor is incomparably strong, it is nothing in front of me. I have a way to break it easily. Yang Dingtian said in surprise. You are willing to help me? Queen Medusa said. Of course, you are my son-in-law. Also, that Wentian seems to be out of our control. In my plan, his weight wasn't as heavy as it is now. After that, Queen Medusa beckoned to Yang Dingtian, come over. In about half a month's time, I can raise your cultivation to the same level as the Demon King Wentian. Ningning will also go with you. In addition to her powerful mental energy, the Demon King Wentian will die for sure. Your victory is already set in stone. Half a month? Only half a month? This way, there would be more than enough time for him to rush back. He could definitely rush back before the crack of darkness bloomed and destroy Wentian in the first dark domain, saving the human countries and the little western paradise. More importantly, he could protect his family. This was truly a great temptation. Yang Dingtian had countless fortuitous encounters in his life, but this one was the greatest. Following that, Queen Medusa smiled. All right, hurry up. What are you waiting for? Yang Dingtian instinctively wanted to walk out and fly towards Queen Medusa. Oh right. Bring these over 1,000 saint-level demonic beasts along with you. At that time, it will only be a matter of time before you dominate the entire chaos world. Medusa continued. The bargaining chips in her words were even more tempting. However, Yang Dingtian suddenly paused and stopped. Something was wrong. What was the most terrifying thing in this world? Losing one's mind because of greed. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the sky. Why did Queen Medusa try to entice him again and again? Especially at the end. She actually used the bargaining chip of dominating the entire chaos world to tempt him. This clearly wasn't right. Shimin Ningning completely understood him. She wasn't such a greedy person. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but glance at Shimin Ningning. She was still looking at Yang Dingtian with boundless gentleness. That face, that gaze, it was exactly the same as in his memories. No, something was wrong. Although it was exactly the same as in his memories, it was precisely because of this that something was wrong. At that time, Yang Dingtian, Qin Xiaobai, and Yang Dingtian had fainted during the battle. After his life and death were unknown, Sister Ningning suddenly transformed and killed countless people in Cloud Sky City, helping Yang Dingtian and the others escape. After that, she also disappeared without a trace. Yang Dingtian didn't see the last scene, so he didn't have any memory of it. But what was certain was that Sister Ningning had transformed. Her entire body had turned green, and there were faint scales. Her Naga true body had appeared, so she should no longer look completely human, nor should she look so white and delicate. However, Yang Dingtian had fainted at that time, so he had no memory of Ningning's transformation. And the current Sister Ningning was completely from Yang Dingtian's memories. Therefore, all of this was an illusion. All of it was taken from Yang Dingtian's memories, including the Shimin Ningning in front of him. As for what Shimin Ningning looked like after the transformation, because Yang Dingtian had never seen it, he couldn't show it in the illusion. This Queen Medusa in front of him was just reading his memories. No wonder, when he thought of something, she immediately knew and said it out loud, as if she could read his mind. But what he didn't think of, she didn't know. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian sneered and said, "Stop pretending. All of this is just an illusion. If I'm not wrong, you're not Queen Medusa at all. You're just a spiritual trap of Medusa. You prevent any creature from entering the Naga Empire. Once they enter your trap, all of their energy will be swallowed up." As soon as these words came out, in the distance Queen Medusa, who was tens of thousands of meters tall, suddenly trembled, and then completely quieted down. Then, the figure of Shimin Ningning shattered and disappeared without a trace. Ah! There was a shrill scream. Then the surrounding light, the surrounding scene of divine light, completely collapsed and shattered. All of the illusions disappeared without a trace. All around, there was a void of destruction, darkness, and death. Of course, this was not the dark void of nothingness from before. It was a void of death. There was still energy, but it was the energy of death. In the distance, there was a statue of Medusa, that was tens of thousands of meters tall. However, part of it had already collapsed. That's right. It was Medusa's trap to prevent all foreign creatures from entering the Naga Empire. Anyone who entered Medusa's trap would immediately have an illusion. In the illusion, the most beautiful scene would appear, attracting you. As long as you were tempted by her and approached her, there was only one ending, and that was to be annihilated, and all of your energy would be swallowed up by it. After the Great Nirvana, the Naga Empire was destroyed, but these Medusa's traps still remained and still played a part. Over the past tens of thousands of years, they still swallowed endless energy. However, once the illusion was seen through, then this spiritual trap would be useless. Yang Dingtian and Vulture flew toward the statue of Medusa, that was tens of thousands of meters tall. Then immediately, Yang Dingtian was deeply attracted by the two eyes on the statue. These two eyes were really like the deep universe, containing endless energy and countless mysteries. Was this the energy source of the spiritual trap? Moreover, over the countless years, this pair of eyes had swallowed the energy of countless invaders. Therefore, it was completely unimaginable how powerful the energy of these two eye gems was. If these two Medusa's eye gems were removed, what effect would it have? It was completely unimaginable. Chapter 11:11. When Yang Dingtian quickly approached the broken statue of Medusa, he found that it was getting smaller and smaller. It was extremely strange. Even though they were so far apart, it was still so huge, and was getting bigger and bigger. It had completely surpassed the height of a giant mountain, that was tens of thousands of meters tall, even surpassing the height of Mount Buzhou. But when Yang Dingtian approached it again, and wanted to dig out the eyes of the statue, it was getting further and further away, smaller and smaller. Yang Dingtian couldn't figure it out. What exactly was going on? Vulture was also shocked. Husband, it seems to be getting further and further away from us, as if we can never reach it. Yang Dingtian could not help but frown. If they could not get the eyes of this Medusa statue, it would not be a big deal. The key point was that this Medusa statue was the center of this space. If they did not pass through it, they would never be able to leave this space. Why was it that they were flying towards it, but they were getting further and further away? Yang Dingtian was extremely surprised. One had to know that this Medusa statue was not a living Naga. It was just a statue energy array. Vulture said, "Husband, is this a powerful spiritual illusion? Is it making us hallucinate that we are getting further and further away?" Illusion? No, the previous illusion had already been shattered. Vulture said, "Then, is it that it has some kind of energy that is constantly pushing us away, so we are getting further and further away?" Yang Dingtian shook his head. Absolutely not, because he was sure that he was moving forward from the back of the mystic flame. Then what was the reason? They were flying towards it, but they were getting further and further away. Then, Yang Dingtian slapped his head hard. He was so stupid that his brain and thinking were really stiff. He had wishful thinking that this Medusa statue was the center of the entire space, and it was motionless. The reason why it was getting further and further away was very simple. It was because it was always moving. It was flying faster than Yang Dingtian, so it was getting further and further away. Of course, after understanding this, Yang Dingtian did not become much happier. That was because the Medusa statue was the center of the entire space. There was no mistake about that. In that case, even if the statue of Medusa kept moving, it would not change the fact that it was the center. That meant that if this space was a sphere, the statue of Medusa would be the center of the sphere. Then, as the statue of Medusa moved, the space kept changing. That meant that Yang Dingtian would be trapped inside forever, unable to escape. That's right, that must be it. Medusa's trap was to prevent any creatures from entering the Naga Empire. In the previous illusion, it could devour the energy of countless saint-level creatures. However, once it was seen through and the illusion disappeared, it would continue to function and prevent any creatures from entering the Naga Empire. Therefore, it kept moving, trapping creatures in this space forever, unable to leave. It was easy to confirm this. As long as Yang Dingtian flew in the opposite direction, it would quickly close in and ensure that Yang Dingtian would never be able to leave this space. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian suddenly changed his direction and flew quickly behind him. Sure enough, the statue of Medusa also changed its direction and quickly approached him. If you approached, it would stay away. If you stayed away, it would come closer. In short, it ensured 2 points. First, it would never let you really get close to it and touch it. Second, it would never allow you to escape from Medusa's trap. There was no other way. Yang Dingtian could only use the near Emperor-grade soul sword. He held the vulture and stepped on the soul sword. Whoosh! The soul sword flew out like lightning. The soul sword's speed was extremely fast. In the illusion just now, this place was filled with light, xianqi, and extremely comfortable oxygen. However, the illusion was broken. In the real scene, this was a void of death. The only thing in this space was the statue of Medusa. Therefore, the soul sword's flight was still unobstructed. There was still no gravity here. The soul sword's flight speed exceeded tens of thousands of kilometers per hour. It was extremely fast. Yang Dingtian stepped on the soul sword and flew towards it like lightning. But Yang Dingtian found that the statue of Medusa suddenly stopped moving. It didn't become bigger or smaller. The reason was very simple. Its flying speed had become exactly the same as the soul sword. So the two were opposite each other. In short, this Medusa statue kept moving, and the trap space with it as a dot also kept moving, ensuring that Yang Dingtian and Vulture were forever trapped inside, unable to escape. The soul sword's speed was so fast, but it could maintain the same speed. Yang Dingtian was really at his wit's end. If you were fast, it would also be fast. If you were slow, it would also be slow. There was really no way to get close, and there was no way to escape. Suddenly, another thought surged in Yang Dingtian's mind. This Medusa statue, once you get close, it will stay away. Once you get away, it will come closer. Then, what about Yang Dingtian and Spirit Vulture? One was far away, while the other was near. Then, how would this Medusa statue react? Then Yang Dingtian thought of another thing. That was, if he and Vulture flew towards the statue, and the other flew behind the statue, then the two of them would very likely be separated. In this world, once they were separated, they might be completely separated and never be able to find each other again. Moreover, Vulture didn't have spatial techniques, nor did it have the void-splitting fire. Yang Dingtian gave up this idea. If this was the case, Vulture might die. Then would it be possible to use a soul sword close to the Emperor grade? Let it fly with its back facing the statue, while Yang Dingtian flew towards the statue. Of course, in this way, Yang Dingtian might lose his soul sword, but at least the soul sword wouldn't die, right? Taking a deep breath, Yang Dingtian controlled the soul sword. With its back facing the Medusa statue, it flew at lightning speed, reaching more than tens of thousands of kilometers per hour. Sure enough, the Medusa statue in the center of the space quickly caught up, always maintaining the same distance, making it impossible for Yang Dingtian to escape the space trap. Then, stepping on the soul sword, Yang Dingtian hugged Vulture, suddenly became invisible, jumped off the soul sword, and flew towards the Medusa statue. Suddenly, the Medusa statue quickly became bigger, getting closer and closer to Yang Dingtian. The reason was very simple, because it continued to chase Yang Dingtian's soul sword, and Yang Dingtian flew towards the statue, the two of them rapidly approaching each other. Especially now, the speed of the Medusa statue reached tens of thousands of kilometers per hour, exactly the same as the speed of the soul sword. And in this way, the soul sword would never fly out of the space, so it wouldn't be lost. Yang Dingtian was getting closer and closer to the Medusa statue, and closer, from thousands of miles to hundreds of miles. Then, Yang Dingtian realized that this statue was bigger than he imagined. It was really much bigger than Mount Buzhou. When he was a few hundred miles away, his vision was completely filled with his figure. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian suddenly rushed towards the Medusa statue. Then holding Vulture, He jumped directly onto the head of the Medusa statue. Creak! In an instant, the Medusa statue suddenly made a loud noise, and then stopped flying quickly. Then it flew frantically, as if trying to throw Yang Dingtian off. However, this was completely useless. This incomparably huge statue seemed to only have two functions. One was to release the spiritual trap, and the other was to fly. And Yang Dingtian stood on its head. There was nothing it could do. After all, it was just a statue, and a statue that was already broken. However, it was really big. Yang Dingtian stood on a strand of its hair, and this strand of hair was as thick as a stream. Yang Dingtian really didn't know how big it was. Yang Dingtian came down from its hair and climbed up to its eyebrows. Over the past tens of thousands of years, it didn't know how many sacred-level creatures it had devoured. All of its energy was placed in these two eyes. So, Yang Dingtian wanted to dig out its two eye gems. But Yang Dingtian didn't expect it to be so huge. An eye gem was far more than a few hundred meters. How could he dig it out? And even if he dug it out, how could he take it away? Whoosh! Yang Dingtian controlled the soul sword and flew over like lightning. After more than an hour, the soul sword that was close to the Emperor grade returned to Yang Dingtian's hands. This was also because of the Medusa statue, because it seemed to have gone crazy and was flying around crazily. Yang Dingtian had already mentally prepared himself. This statue was incomparably sturdy and couldn't be damaged at all. Even a soul sword that was close to the Emperor grade couldn't break it. After all, the fossil of the Sea Serpent Empire's Empress at that time couldn't be broken, even with a soul sword that was close to the Emperor grade. It also had to rely on the Naga royalty sword spirit. Therefore, Yang Dingtian immediately used the Naga royalty sword spirit to destroy the statue's eye sockets. Whoosh 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 whoosh. 10,000 swords returned to the sect. Countless golden sword spirits fiercely attacked the Medusa statue's eye sockets. It was actually unharmed. Yang Dingtian was completely stunned. Even the Naga royalty sword spirit couldn't destroy it. Then what else in this world could be destroyed? At this moment, Vulture suddenly took Yang Dingtian's soul sword that was close to the Emperor grade and directly slashed down. It didn't use the sword spirit, nor did it use any mystical skills. It just slashed down. Boom! After a loud sound, a huge boulder directly collapsed. The corner of the Medusa statue's eye cracked. Yang Dingtian was speechless. The Naga royalty sword spirit couldn't destroy it. Instead, it could directly cut it into pieces. It was really strange. But thinking about it, it was normal. After all, this was a statue erected by the Naga Empire. Then, Yang Dingtian crazily slashed down. In an instant, the eye sockets of the huge statue shattered and collapsed piece by piece. After a full 2 hours, finally, the entire eye sockets of the statue were completely destroyed. A Medusa statue's eyeball rolled down. Yang Dingtian hurriedly controlled the soul sword to catch the eye. Then a miracle happened. This eyeball gem, after leaving the statue, actually became smaller and smaller. Finally, it became the size of Naga's eyeball. Yang Dingtian glanced at it, and then continued to slash at the other eye socket. 2 hours later, the other eye gem was also in hand. Boom boom boom. With a series of loud noises, this incomparably huge statue began to collapse and shatter. These two eyeballs were indeed the energy core of the entire statue, the entire trap space. Once it was taken out, the entire trap would collapse completely. The entire space was completely shattered. Boom! After a violent tremor, the entire Medusa's trap space completely collapsed without a trace. Yang Dingtian and Vulture automatically left the space. The surrounding scenery suddenly changed. In front of them, there was an endless shadow of the void. The entire surrounding was an endless shadow of the void. Everything was bizarre, mysterious and unfathomable. And in a very distant place in front of them, at the end of the shadow of the void, Yang Dingtian saw a beautiful and mysterious green. It was like a single planet, but it could emit its own light. The green light was incomparably beautiful. That's right. That was the ruins of the old Naga Empire. Whether it was the description of the Sea Snake Empress, or Yang Dingtian's understanding, the entire Naga Empire was filled with pyramids. All of the land and everything had been transformed into energy crystals. There were no trees, flowers, flowing water, rocks, or mountains in this world. There were only endless crystals and endless pyramids. Found it, saw it, finally saw it. As long as they passed through this long shadow of the void, they would reach the ruins of the old Naga Empire. Poisa and Naga Shuang would be inside. Chapter 11-12. Yang Dingtian didn't set off immediately. Instead, he stopped to practice for a moment. The biggest obstacle to going to the ruins of the Naga Empire should have passed. The first obstacle was the omnipresent dark void. Yang Dingtian also roughly understood where the dark void came from. It was the dark matter that had swallowed the entire ancient sea serpent empire. Perhaps it had been swallowed to the extreme, or perhaps it was for some other reason. In short, the dark matter suddenly exploded. Every unit of dark matter exploded into a separate dark void. Every void had an infinitely large space, and there were countless such dark voids at the edge of the sea serpent empire, blocking the way to the Naga Empire. After passing through the dark void, the trap of Medusa was the obstacle that prevented all creatures from entering the Naga Empire. In fact, Medusa's trap could indeed prevent any creatures from entering. Otherwise, in the entire history of all the races, only Shiwu Piaoyan had successfully entered the Naga Empire. The reason why Yang Dingtian could pass through Medusa's trap space was not because he was very powerful. It was because the Naga Empire was destroyed, and the world was destroyed. Therefore, Medusa's trap had also become a ruin, leaving only perhaps less than 1% of its power. But even this 1% of its power was enough to kill all the surviving saint-level elemental creatures in the surroundings over the tens of thousands of years. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but take out the 2 eyes of the Medusa statue and played with them in his hands. These 2 gems were golden yellow, but the pupils exuded a little green. Over the past tens of thousands of years, these 2 gems had swallowed countless amounts of energy. But at this time, Yang Dingtian held them in his hands, and he couldn't feel any energy. It was really strange. The Shira vulture was the most sensitive to energy, so he handed the gem to the vulture and said, "Feel it." After Shira vulture took it, she closed her beautiful eyes. She didn't feel the energy inside first. Instead, she recalled the time before the Great War of the Evil Ways. At that time, she was still Yang Dingtian's adopted sister. They went on adventures with Song Chunhua, Qin Huayu, and the others. Every time they found something good, Vulture would fight for it. Basically, Yang Dingtian doted on her and gave her many good things. Recalling those scenes, Yang Dingtian couldn't help but feel a little sour. Then, she calmed down and felt the energy of the 2 gems. After a long time, she opened her beautiful eyes and said, "Husband, I can't feel any energy at all." Yang Dingtian couldn't help but be surprised. Vulture continued, "But I can guarantee that it contains an incomparably powerful energy. In fact, these aren't 2 gems but 2 energy arrays." Yang Dingtian couldn't help but be surprised. An energy array? Such a small energy array? Oh no, this thing is very big. Normally, it's a few hundred meters in diameter. It's just that it's smaller now. Vulture said, "This is Medusa's trap. It used to be the Naga Empire's absolute defense against foreign creatures. But after the Naga Empire was destroyed, it lost its energy supply. But it still works, because it has its own energy cycle. It attracts countless powerful creatures, and then swallows their energy. In the energy array, it converts all the energy into its own energy to maintain the whole space trap. Because of this, it can still function more than 10,000 years after the Naga Empire was destroyed." Yang Dingtian nodded. This speculation was very reasonable. Then he said, "Then can you summon the energy inside? Or even the souls inside? These 2 gems have swallowed the souls and energy of countless saint-level demon beasts, and you can summon any soul." Vulture shook its head and said, I don't think so. Because after swallowing the souls and energy of countless saint-level demon beasts, they were completely purified in these two energy arrays. So now, these two gems contain the most basic energy, without any souls. Then Vulture said, Husband, these are definitely two treasures, but we can't use them now. Maybe, the Nagaduga Shuang has a way to deal with them. Yang Dingtian nodded. If he wanted to destroy the Demon King, the Nagaduga Shuang might be the right choice. So he put the two Medusa's eye gems into the space ring and flew toward the green light. Although Yang Dingtian was still very far away from the ruins of the Naga Empire, but at least, he was now at a distance in the true sense. It was not like before, when it was completely foggy, and he had to pass through different spaces. In the shadow of the void, Yang Dingtian kept flying toward the west. Yang Dingtian kept flying, flying and flying. He was getting closer and closer to the green ruins of the Naga Empire. In fact, Yang Dingtian could already see its figure. It was a very ugly shape, even twisted and ferocious. At this time, from Yang Dingtian's point of view, it was no more than the size of a table. Although Yang Dingtian knew that it was not a planet, but it really looked like a planet, and a twisted and strange planet. And at this time, Yang Dingtian seemed to be flying in the universe, about to land on this ugly and mysterious planet. He flew for tens of thousands of miles. Throughout the whole process, Yang Dingtian had been extremely careful, because the Sea Snake Empress had once said that there would be terrifying dark cracks, energy storms, elemental creatures and so on here. It was completely filled with danger. As long as he bumped into one, his life would be in danger. Without a doubt, this was the most dangerous place in the world, even more dangerous than the Dark Realm. But in this dark void that flew for tens of thousands of miles, there was nothing other than the terrifying distorted light. The dark abyss, void cracks, and powerful energy creatures that the Sea Snake Empress had mentioned were nowhere to be seen. Nothing. Everywhere, there was a deathly silence. Everything was already dead. Not to mention energy creatures, not even a physical object could be seen. The only things that survived were all kinds of strange lights. There was not even the dark abyss here. In the Dark Realm, the most powerful one was the dark abyss. It was constantly devouring the remaining energy of the entire Dark Realm. However, such a powerful dark abyss could not appear in this area. Everything was because of the ruins of the old Naga Empire. After the Great Nirvana, it was like a different kind of black hole, destroying everything. Yang Dingtian continued to fly. He flew for tens of thousands of miles again. On the way, there was an eternal silence and eternal void. He did not encounter any danger. He was getting closer and closer to the ruins of the old Naga Empire. And this ruins, in Yang Dingtian's eyes, became bigger and bigger, from a round plate to a table. By now it was as big as a house. Of course, it was still quite far away from Yang Dingtian. But Yang Dingtian could almost see the scene above clearly. It was like looking at the earth from tens of thousands of miles away. Yang Dingtian could even see that the ruins of the old Naga Empire were still constantly distorting and changing. Or rather, it was still collapsing. That's right, it was constantly collapsing, constantly shrinking, constantly changing. There was no doubt that this ruins was a very dangerous place. And at this time, the void where Yang Dingtian was no longer without gravity. The distortion of the ruins of the old Naga Empire had gravity on it, and was constantly sucking him over. In other words, even if Yang Dingtian did not use the mysterious fire to fly, he would still land on the ruins. Basically, he had successfully reached the ruins. Suddenly, Spirit Vulture exclaimed, "Husband, I can sense a very powerful energy storm." Yang Dingtian asked in astonishment, "How powerful is it?" Vulture thought for a while and said, "I think it should be enough to completely destroy the entire northwest continent." Yang Dingtian was completely stunned. An energy storm of this level. Yang Dingtian was like a shrimp. Since leaving the Medusa's trap, it was absolutely safe. He did not expect to encounter an energy storm when he was about to land. Yang Dingtian could not help but ask, "Then, can we fly out of this energy storm as fast as possible?" Spirit Vulture closed her eyes and shook her head. We can't, husband. We're at the very center of this energy storm. No matter which direction we fly in, we'll crash into the energy storm and be reduced to ashes. Not even dust will remain. An energy storm that could tear the entire Northwest continent into pieces was indeed not something that anyone could resist. The only thing Yang Dingtian and Vulture could do now was to stay motionless in the center of the energy storm and wait for the judgment of heaven. If they were lucky, they would be fine. If they were unlucky, they would turn into ashes, and not even powder would be left. Soon Yang Dingtian also felt this energy storm. He saw that everything had completely disappeared. Even the ruins of the old Naga Empire had disappeared from sight. Everything that could be seen with the naked eye was distorted light and shadow. The entire world was completely distorted and destroyed. The energy storm was getting closer and closer. Then it suddenly engulfed Yang Dingtian and Vulture. Yang Dingtian hugged Vulture in his arms, closed his eyes, and resigned himself to fate. Then the energy storm suddenly blew past. Yang Dingtian instantly lost all his consciousness and instantly vanished from this space. All thoughts, willpower, emotions, and so on disappeared in an instant. It was as if a person had died and the lights went out. No one knew how long had passed. Yang Dingtian woke up slowly and opened his eyes. Everything in his field of vision was made of green crystals. Below him was also the hard ground. This was the ruins of the old Naga Empire. The energy storm directly swept him and Vulture to the ruins of the old Naga Empire. That was because the storm itself was caused by the drastic change in energy within the ruins. He had finally arrived here. Chapter 11-13. Not long after, Yang Dingtian hurriedly fumbled around, looking for Vulture. But please don't lose the Spirit Vulture. If you do, you won't be able to find it again. After nervously fumbling around, Yang Dingtian didn't find Vulture, and was scared out of his wits. But then he felt a soft ball in his arms. When he looked down, he saw Vulture in his arms. Her whole delicate body was wrapped around him like a snake. Yang Dingtian breathed a sigh of relief, and then gently patted Vulture's face. Wake up, wake up, Yang Dingtian said. Vulture woke up faintly. Her beautiful eyes were unfocused for a while, and then said in a delicate voice, Husband, where are we? Yang Dingtian. If I'm not wrong, we have entered the ruins of the Naga Empire. Vulture propped up her delicate body, sniffed gently, and couldn't help but tremble. God, what a rich energy! I have never felt it before. Yang Dingtian felt it a little. Then, he clearly felt that countless chi energy was madly pouring into his body. That's right. Yang Dingtian didn't even need to use the mystic chi breathing technique, but countless mystic chi surged in. That was because the concentration of chi here was too high, even higher than the concentration of chi in Yang Dingtian's sea of chi. So there was a backflow. This was too amazing. Although the human sea of chi was another energy world, its space was also very large. But the concentration of chi in it was extremely high. Otherwise, when the sea of chi attacked, it would not burst out with such powerful energy in an instant. However, the chi energy here was even higher than the sea of chi, which was too amazing, completely beyond the scope of Yang Dingtian's understanding. Even in the old Naga Empire, it was impossible to have such a high level of profound chi energy. In particular, the Naga Empire had been turned into a pile of ruins. Vulture was also extremely surprised. Husband, it's impossible for the chaos world to have such a strong concentration of Xian Qi energy. It doesn't make sense. Yang Dingtian nodded. This was indeed illogical. However, he had read books about the Naga Empire. He knew the reason behind it. The reason why the celestial chi concentration is so high is because demigod Naga has completely transformed the entire empire, turning everything here into energy crystals. The soil, the mountains, the rivers, the boulders, everything has been turned into energy crystals. Yang Dingtian continued. Then the entire Naga Empire was transformed into the most powerful energy array in history, which crazily devoured the energy of the entire chaotic world. Even if we are separated by tens of thousands of kilometers, or even hundreds of thousands of kilometers, countless amounts of profound energy will be absorbed. Vulture asked, just like the Xian-Qi condensation array. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, yes, but they transformed the entire Naga Empire's tens of thousands of miles of territory into a huge Xian-Qi condensation array. Therefore, its power is millions of times greater than our Council of Light's Xian-Qi condensation essence array. It can crazily devour the Xian-Qi energy of the entire world. Vulture was completely stunned and muttered to herself, This is too crazy, too greedy. The Empire of Darkness only devoured the Xian-Qi of the Yin-Yang Mirror, the world of ice and snow, and the demon's domain. But this Naga Empire has devoured the entire world. Yang Dingtian continued. Yes, so the Naga clan has become a disaster for the entire world, which directly led to the last great nirvana. Therefore, the concentration of Xian-Qi in our human countries will become weaker and weaker. Vulture closed her beautiful eyes, and once again felt the concentration of Xian-Qi here. She said, Husband, the concentration of Xian-Qi here is even higher than in your Medusa's illusion. It's just that the illusion at that time was fake, and here is real. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, I have roughly calculated that the concentration of Xian-Qi here is more than 10,000 times that of the human countries. In other words, it's fortunate that both of us are semi-saints. Otherwise, under such a terrible concentration of Xian-Qi, I'm afraid that our sea of Qi would have been crushed into ashes. Vulture got up from Yang Dingtian's body and asked, Husband, where are we in the ruins of the old Naga Empire? Yang Dingtian looked up and looked around. This was a completely enclosed space, about a few dozen square meters wide, and a few dozen meters high. The surroundings were all sealed by green energy crystals. I don't know. Yang Dingtian said. In the Naga Empire, every Naga has a pyramid. Inside each pyramid, there is a Xian-Qi array, which is the place where they cultivate. Every Naga gets a proportion of Xian-Qi according to their cultivation and level. So, maybe we are in one of the pyramids, and have been swept in by the energy storm. Vulture said, Husband, the concentration of Xian-Qi here is so high. Do you want to break through to the saint level first, or go out to find the Naga Shuang first? Yang Dingtian said, Breaking through to the saint level can be done at any time. It's complicated and changeable here. Maybe a minute's delay will change the whole outcome. So let's go find her first. Oh, okay. Vulture said. She could understand what a minute meant, because it was the unit of time on Earth. At this time, it was very popular in the Council of Light, and they had even made crystal clocks. Then, Yang Dingtian and Vulture looked for a way out. The two looked around one by one to see if there were any secret doors, gaps, or something like that. However, they found nothing. Every energy crystal was intact, without any hidden compartments or gaps. Logically speaking, this was impossible. Any building was built piece by piece, so there would definitely be gaps. However, for some reason, the surrounding energy crystals were absolutely intact. In other words, there was nothing like an exit at all. Then they needed to dig an exit. Yang Dingtian suddenly had a headache, because many energy substances were completely invulnerable. For example, the dark matter. Even a near-emperor-grade soul sword could not do anything to it. Yang Dingtian could only pray that these energy crystals were not so hard. Of course, he did not need to use his hands to summon the soul sword from the space ring. Instead, he used his consciousness to control the soul sword, and began to rotate and dig. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The near-emperor-grade soul sword suddenly began to rotate crazily and quickly, digging into the crystals above them. There was good news and bad news. The bad news was that the crystals here were indeed very hard. Even a near-emperor-grade soul sword would find it difficult to dig them out. The good news was that although the crystals here were very hard, they were only hard. They were not like the dark matter, which was a pure energy body, and could not be destroyed at all. Therefore, the energy crystals here could still be excavated. And relatively speaking, Yang Dingtian's near-emperor-grade soul sword was harder. Whoosh 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 whoosh. It kept drilling, drilling, drilling. After about a quarter of an hour, a 1-foot hole was finally drilled out. Now young Dingtian could only hope that the energy crystals here were not too thick. Just as young Dingtian was drilling incessantly, suddenly, there was a violent tremor. Then a small energy storm suddenly swept through the entire space. Young Dingtian and Vulture had no way to dodge, and were directly hit. Suddenly, the two flew out directly and smashed hard on the crystal cave wall. Puff! Both of them were high-level half-saints, but they still spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood sprayed on the energy crystals, and was instantly absorbed without a trace. The energy crystals here were completely crazy energy-devouring bodies. Husband, stop, stop, stop. Vulture suddenly shouted. Young Dingtian stopped the soul sword's drilling. Vulture said, Husband, the energy field here is extremely unstable. Moreover, the entire ruins of the old Naga Empire are constantly shrinking and collapsing. Any slight change could destroy the fragile energy balance and lead to a drastic change. Young Dingtian nodded. Vulture was right. The small energy storm just now was caused by the soul sword drilling. The ruins of the Naga Empire were an extremely terrifying super-energy nuclear bomb. Even the slightest movement could cause an explosion. A small explosion of energy was enough to destroy several cities. And a large energy explosion, just like the large energy storm that young Dingtian encountered before, could directly destroy the entire northwest continent. Of course, a huge energy explosion would cause the entire ruins of the Naga Empire to be turned into ashes. Young Dingtian was silent for a moment and said, Vulture, according to your guess, where are we in the ruins now? Vulture said, the entire ruins are distorted. The closer to the center, the weaker the energy field. We only dug a 1-foot hole and caused an energy storm. So maybe we are in the center of the ruins. In fact, young Dingtian almost guessed it without Vulture's explanation. The huge energy storm before was caused by the upheaval inside the ruins of the Naga Empire. And this upheaval usually came from the center of the ruins. The surface did not have so much energy. The upheaval inside led to the release of a huge amount of energy, which turned into an energy storm and dissipated into nothingness. So, young Dingtian and Vulture were indeed sucked into the center of the ruins. Now the entire ruins of the old Naga Empire had become a distorted planet. Young Dingtian did not know the diameter, but it was at least a few thousand miles. In other words, young Dingtian was at least 1,000 miles under the energy crystal body. This was the most powerful and luxurious energy prison in history. No wonder the Xianqi here was so dense. Now it was difficult to get out. They could not dig. They could only wait for the next distortion on the ruined planet. Perhaps a crack would open. Of course, young Dingtian had to pray that he would not be torn to pieces in the upheaval. Then, before that, he would enjoy the Xianqi density here, that was 10,000 times higher than that of the human countries. It was almost endless. It was a holy place for cultivation to break through to the saint level. Suddenly, young Dingtian said to Vulture, Then let's take advantage of this opportunity to absorb the Xianqi. Vulture nodded excitedly. Then the two sat down cross-legged, ran the incantation, and absorbed the Xianqi. Suddenly, almost endless Xianqi poured into young Dingtian's sea of qi. The Xianqi density was almost no less than the direct absorption of the energy essence. It was really crazy. Young Dingtian kept absorbing, absorbing and absorbing. The endless Xianqi did not have any intention of stopping. It was like a tide, pouring into the sea. Before, young Dingtian's cultivation was only half a step away from the saint level. Of course, it was very difficult to break through this half step, because it was not only a matter of the total amount of Xianqi, but also a matter of the Xianqi density. However, everything did not exist here. The Xianqi density here had reached the limit. Moreover, the Xianqi here was the purest Xianqi that young Dingtian had ever experienced. The Naga Empire was so crazy that it transformed cultivation into such a direct process. 1 hour. 2 hours. 4 hours. Suddenly, young Dingtian felt a clear expansion. Then his sea of qi expanded more and more. Finally, it reached the limit. Boom! His sea of qi suddenly exploded. His whole person and divine sense were completely immersed in nothingness. He broke through. His sea of qi broke through to the saint level. This was crazy. The normal absorption of Xian qi, without absorbing any energy essence, actually broke through to the saint level in more than 4 hours. The ruins of the Naga Empire were really crazy. However, this was just the beginning. Endless Xian qi was still pouring in crazily. Chapter 11:14. Of course, Yang Dingtian's sea of qi had only surpassed the saint level at this time, and his cultivation had not really surpassed the saint level. He needed an incomparably powerful energy to really degenerate his sea of qi and Xian meridians before he could become a real saint-level expert. Before, there was a special provision in the Little Western Paradise that could really degenerate and transform a saint-level expert. But now the Little Western Paradise had completely fallen into the hands of the Demon King. The sea of qi had broken through the saint level, but it was not the end of Yang Dingtian's Xian breathing technique, but it was just the beginning. After Yang Dingtian regained consciousness, endless Xian qi madly poured into Yang Dingtian's sea of qi. However, at this time, the sea of qi was incomparably empty, as if it would never be full. 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. After a full 18 hours, Yang Dingtian felt the familiar feeling of expansion. Then a full 4 hours passed. After countless times of expansion, it reached the limit. Boom! Yang Dingtian's sea of qi exploded again. His whole person once again fell into nothingness. His sea of qi, once again, broke through to the first rank of the 20th level. Then Xian qi continued to pour in. After 14 hours, Yang Dingtian's sea of qi, once again, expanded and exploded. It broke through to the second rank of the 20th level. After 15 hours, Yang Dingtian's sea of qi, once again exploded. It broke through to the third rank of the 20th level. Just when Yang Dingtian felt that it would take more and more time to break through. The next time, it took him 13 hours to break through to the fourth rank of the 20th level. Normally, when breaking through to the fourth rank, it would take more Xian qi than to break through to the third rank of the 20th level. So it would take longer. Unexpectedly, it was faster by 4 hours. Of course, this had nothing to do with Yang Dingtian's Xian meridians, but the Xian qi concentration here had further increased. Then, it took only 11 hours for Yang Dingtian's cultivation to break through to the 5th rank of the 20th level. 18 hours later, Yang Dingtian broke through to the 6th rank of the 20th level. 14 hours later, Yang Dingtian broke through to the 7th rank of the 20th level. 10 hours later, Yang Dingtian broke through to the 8th rank of the 20th level. 6 hours later, Yang Dingtian broke through to the 9th rank of the 20th level. At the same time, suddenly, Vulture spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, her entire body began to tremble. That was because her sea of qi had officially broken through to the saint level. When Yang Dingtian was at the 9th rank of the 19th rank, Vulture was not even at the 18th rank. Now he had actually managed to break through to the saint level. Moreover, the time taken for Yang Dingtian to break through was getting shorter and shorter. What did this mean? The concentration of Xian qi was getting higher and higher. Compared to when Yang Dingtian had just entered this place, the profound qi concentration had actually increased by more than 10 times. It looks wonderful, doesn't it? No, it wasn't wonderful at all, because this meant that a drastic change was coming. This kind of profound qi concentration was not normal. At this time, the profound qi concentration here was already more than 100,000 times that of the human countries. Even if a great grandmaster entered here, his entire sea of qi would not be able to withstand the pressure and would directly explode. Moreover, Yang Dingtian was already feeling very, very uncomfortable. In particular, although his sea of qi had broken through to the saint level, his body and Xian meridians had not. Under this horrifying mystic qi density, Yang Dingtian could feel that he was practically unable to move. The boundless mystic chi had turned into an enormous pressure that was crushing him. In less than 2 hours, Yang Dingtian felt his sea of chi expand again. He was about to break through to the 21st level. This was a breakthrough, and it had actually taken less than 2 hours. This showed how terrible the profound chi concentration was. And this incomparably thick energy crystal was almost unable to contain this incomparably terrible profound chi. Puff! Vulture could no longer withstand the profound chi concentration here and spat out blood again, not only from his mouth, but also from his nostrils and ears. Then, Yang Dingtian's blood spurted out from his 7 orifices like a fountain. Speaking of which, his physical fitness was not as good as Vulture's at this time. The reason for that was because the spirit Vulture possessed the body of an Asura. This should have been the holy land of cultivation in this world. But everything had its limits. Once the limit was broken, even the most beautiful thing would be a disaster. Boom! Yang Dingtian's sea of qi, after expanding less than 5 times, directly exploded. His sea of qi, once again, broke through to the 21st level. Of course, it was only his sea of qi. His cultivation and Xian meridians were still at the 9th rank of the 19th level. However, at this time, Yang Dingtian was completely unable to move. The profound qi concentration here was so high that it directly turned into layers of energy prison, squeezing Yang Dingtian to the point that he could not move at all. Moreover, it was useless even if he did not absorb the profound qi, because the endless profound qi was instinctively pouring into Yang Dingtian's sea of qi. This kind of breakthrough at this time was already as painful as hell. In the beginning, Yang Dingtian's blood was still gushing out. Later, the profound qi concentration was so high that Yang Dingtian could not even spurt out blood. His entire Xian meridians began to expand rapidly, as if they could explode at any time. Vulture was still fine. Although Shura lost the competition with Naga, their body was still much stronger than a human body. Yang Dingtian's human body, even with the 9 Yang Xian meridians, could not bear it at all. Under the terrible pressure of the profound qi concentration, his body and Xian meridians had begun to distort and deform. His entire appearance and shape became very unbearable. Vulture was scared and completely stopped cultivating. It came over and hugged Yang Dingtian tightly, trying to use its body to block the pressure of the profound qi. But it was useless. The pressure of the profound qi was completely pervasive. Then, Vulture tried to use the power of a celestial spirit master to control the profound qi energy. Yes, she could, but only a part of it. The profound qi accumulation in this small space was already at the level of countless saint-level experts. She could only control a part of it. If this continued, Yang Dingtian's only ending was that his whole body suddenly exploded and completely turned into ashes. And if the profound qi concentration became higher, even Vulture would not be spared. Although Shura's body was strong, it was not a demigod after all. Moreover, this profound qi concentration was not even present in the ancient Naga Empire. This was simply caused by the abnormal distortion and upheaval of the ruins of the Naga Empire. At this time, Yang Dingtian completely did not care how much his cultivation had broken through. He had even begun to lose consciousness. And the profound qi concentration was still rising. It rose from more than 10 times, when he first came in, to dozens of times. Then, Shura saw an incomparably miraculous and strange scene. When the profound qi concentration reached the highest level, the profound qi energy, which was originally empty, began to solidify. Yes, it turned into a solid crystal. The profound qi energy turned into a transparent crystal. It was terrifying and shocking. As for Yang Dingtian and Spirit Vulture, they had been completely trapped inside the mystic qi crystal. However, it was still not over. The profound qi concentration was still rising and rising. Soon, even Vulture began to lose consciousness. Moreover, these profound qi crystals began to look for any space, desperately trying to squeeze into it. Crack, crack. Finally, the thick energy crystals could no longer withstand such powerful Xian qi energy, and they started to tremble and shatter. Then it directly tore a huge crack, leading to the outside of the ruins. Boom! Then the profound qi crystal suddenly exploded. It turned into endless profound chi, violently shooting out, and turning into a terrible energy storm. And a huge crack suddenly appeared in the middle of the sphere of the ruins of the Naga Empire, which was thousands of miles in diameter. The terrible energy storm suddenly swept out. Then this powerful Xianqi energy would completely dissipate into the void. The ruins of the old Naga Empire would continue to shrink and collapse as a result. That was how it went to death again and again. When the energy storm rushed into the void, it directly rushed Yang Dingtian and Vulture out. The two of them were very lucky, or not lucky. It was how it should be. The center of the storm was usually calm. Yang Dingtian was not torn to pieces. Instead, after the profound chi crystal turned into an energy storm, the surrounding pressure was suddenly released, and his whole body returned to normal. However, when he woke up again, he was already floating in the vast void. Below, it was still the sphere of the ruins of the old Naga Empire that was constantly twisting and changing. Just as Yang Dingtian tried to fly, and then tried to land on the surface of the ruins. Suddenly, another energy vortex began to sweep out. His whole body once again lost control. He was involuntarily sucked in and swallowed by the energy vortex. And a huge crack appeared in the ruins below, like the mouth of hell, to swallow the two of them. No, don't be sucked into the center of the ruins again. Yang Dingtian madly prayed in his heart. Just now, he was lucky not to die. If it happened again, he might die. However, in front of this energy vortex, his personal energy was extremely small and could not resist at all. However, he did not know whether it was luck or something else. This time, Yang Dingtian was not swallowed into the center of the ruins. Before they were swallowed, the crack suddenly closed up. As the crack closed, the energy storm stopped directly. Yang Dingtian and Vulture were thrown to the ground of the ruined planet. After coming to the ground of the ruins, Yang Dingtian and Queen Poisa let out the same sigh. This was really a mysterious, and strange world. Everything that entered his sight was energy crystals. There were no trees, rivers, and so on. When Queen Poisa arrived, there were still many pyramids here. And now, who knew how many upheavals had happened? Most of the Naga pyramids had disappeared. The entire ground seemed to be filled with twisted crystals. Standing up with difficulty, Yang Dingtian said to Vulture, "Let's send a signal to Shuang-Er and Poisa. I will release mystic fire lightning to tens of thousands of meters in the sky. If Shuang-Er and Poisa are on the surface of the ruins, they will definitely see it." Vulture nodded and said, "I can control these lightning bolts and right in the air." Suddenly, Yang Dingtian was stunned and said, "Lightning bursts out completely in an instant. Can you make it in time?" "I don't know, I'll try," Vulture said, "because I also use consciousness to control the energy, and it's also done in an instant." Yang Dingtian took a deep breath before releasing the Primal Chaos Attribute Million Spirit Demon Flame and the Primal Chaos Attribute Devil Spirit Demon Flame. Then he released his mystic chi to the extreme. Whoosh! The two mystic fires suddenly flew into the air, higher and higher, and finally reached tens of thousands of meters. Then, the two mystic fires fiercely collided in the air. Boom! In an instant, like a hydrogen bomb explosion, boundless lightning, hundreds of miles of lightning, suddenly cut through the sky, completely illuminating the dark void of thousands of miles. At the same time, Vulture quickly used his consciousness to control these energies. Heaven! Hundreds of miles of lightning, twisting and turning in the air, wrote the word heaven. If Naga Shuang or Queen Poisa were on the surface of the ruins, they should be able to see it, or there was a 50% chance that they could see it, because this ruin was an irregular sphere. If Shuang-Er and Poisa were on the other side of the ruins, they would not be able to see it. After releasing it, Yang Dingtian immediately swallowed a mystic gathering elixir to recover his mystic chi. Then, he tried to fly to the other side of the ruins and released the mystic fire lightning signal in the air to summon Naga Shuang and Queen Poisa. Chapter 11:15. Most of the time, the more important the matter was, the more complicated it would be. However, this time, Yang Dingtian was very successful. After releasing the first mystic fire lightning, Yang Dingtian sat down cross-legged, closed his eyes, and meditated to recover his mystic qi. He prepared to go to another location and release the mystic fire lightning again. However, only a quarter of an hour later, Spirit Vulture suddenly cried out in surprise, "Husband, look!" Yang Dingtian opened his eyes and immediately saw a beautiful snow-white figure flying over from the west. It was Queen Poisa. In the void, she kept flying in circles, as if she was avoiding invisible energy whirlpools. When she was 100 miles away from Yang Dingtian, they saw each other. Then, even if they were very far away, Yang Dingtian could easily feel the ecstasy in Queen Poisa's eyes. A few minutes later, Queen Poisa flew over Yang Dingtian and slowly floated down. She immediately threw herself into Yang Dingtian's arms and said softly, "Little Tian, you're finally here. You're finally here. You really came." She repeated the same words over and over again, exuding the joy and happiness in her heart. "I'm sorry I'm late," Yang Dingtian said. No. Queen Poisa said, "You came much earlier than I thought. I was really worried that you would be in danger. I was worried about the Demon King Wentian, worried about the Doomsday Battle." Yang Dingtian stroked her back and said in surprise, "Sha, you've already broken through to the saint level." Queen Poisa said, "The mystic chi density here is really too high. All the energy pyramid arrays have been abandoned. Any pyramid can help you break through to the saint level." Then Poisa said with a smile, "I'm still absent-minded in my cultivation. I've already surpassed the 21st level." Then, Poisa looked at Yang Dingtian. "Your Qi cultivation has also surpassed the 21st level? How could he be so fast?" Yang Dingtian said, "Vulture and I were sucked into the core of the ruins. The profound energy there was so dense that it became an ancient crystal. My profound veins and body were limited. Otherwise, I could have broken through as much as I wanted, but I completely lost control of my body." Poisa said in surprise, "You actually entered the core of the ruins? It's very, very dangerous." Yang Dingtian, "It was very dangerous. I almost lost my life." Then, Yang Dingtian pointed at the vulture and said, "This is Vulture." "Vulture, this is Poisa," Yang Dingtian said. Vulture obediently stepped forward and bowed. "Greetings, Sister Poisa." She was very cunning. She called Poisa sister instead of auntie. "Vulture, you're finally here." Poisa teased. Yang Dingtian, "Sha, where's Shuang, Poisa said. After she completely transformed, she regained her consciousness. She tried to leave the ruins of the old Naga Empire several times, but she failed. Then she temporarily gave up on leaving. At first, she cultivated in the pyramid. Later, she disliked that the profound energy concentration in the pyramid was too low. Every time the energy storm opened, she would drill into the core of the ruins and devour the most powerful profound energy. Yang Dingtian was shocked. The Nagas were indeed Nagas. They were actually so powerful to such a terrifying extent. Yang Dingtian was accidentally sucked into the core of the ruins and almost died. He was completely lucky that he escaped from the center of the energy storm. And Naga Shuang actually took the initiative to cultivate in the core. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but ask, "How is Shuang Er's cultivation now?" Queen Poisa shook her head and said, "I don't know. She never talks to me, but I seem to know that her cultivation speed is not fast. Every time she breaks through, she needs much more profound energy than us. It seems to need many times more profound energy." Yang Dingtian couldn't help but be surprised and puzzled. "Why?" Poisa said. "But even so, she has been cultivating in the core of the earth for a long time. She must be very powerful." Yang Dingtian, "Then how should we find her?" Poisa said, "We can't find her. She will come out once every 10 days. Yang Dingtian, "But when the profound energy concentration in the core of the earth reaches a certain level, it will erupt into an energy storm." Queen Poisa said, "But after she devours it, it can't erupt." Yang Dingtian was stunned and speechless. This was too heaven-defying. Then young Dingtian asked, "Then how long has she been cultivating in this cycle?" Queen Poisa said, 7 days. "She will come out in 3 days. Let's go and wait. I'll take you to a more stable pyramid to wait for her." Okay. Young Dingtian. Then, Queen Poisa carefully flew into the air with young Dingtian. Flying in a straight line was definitely out of the question. He had to make a turn, because there were invisible energy whirlpools everywhere around him. Queen Poisa had been here for a long time, so she was already familiar with it. "Little Tian, did we win the battle of destruction?" Poisa asked. "We won." Young Dingtian. "Then what about the Demon King Wentian?" Poisa asked. Young Dingtian paused for a moment, then told her everything. After talking for about 15 minutes, he finally told her everything about the Demon King and Su Yan's fusion. Then young Dingtian asked, "Shasha, can Shuang'er defeat the Demon King now?" Queen Poisa thought for a moment and said, "According to what you said, the Demon King is infinitely close to a demigod. It's just that his body's talent hasn't reached the demigod level. The energy in his chi-si has also surpassed the demigod level. Moreover, he has the terrifying Chaos Emperor armor, so only a demigod can defeat him." Young Dingtian nodded. Queen Poisa said, "But Shuang'er definitely hasn't reached the demigod level." Young Dingtian nodded and said, "I know. In the ancient Naga, it took a few thousand years to cultivate to the demigod level. Shuang'er is only a few decades old and has just completed her transformation. It's impossible for her to become a demigod." Queen Poisa said, "But don't worry, Shuang'er is definitely undefeatable. Her demigod body is completely unafraid of any harm. Even if that Demon King is infinitely close to the demigod level, it's impossible for him to hurt her." This was absolute. A Naga who had completely completed her transformation was simply invincible. Other than the higher-level Naga, there was no other creature that could hurt her. Then, Queen Poisa's face showed some worry and said, "So, if the Naga Shuang is willing to help, we should be in an undefeatable state." Young Dingtian couldn't help but be stunned and said, "Shasha, what do you mean? What do you mean if she's willing to help? Hasn't she always been our family?" Queen Poisa nodded and said, "I know Naga's loyalty to their partners is absolute. It's lifelong, and it's absolute. But after all, you two haven't been united, so you're not a true couple." Young Dingtian nodded and said, "I know, but my relationship with Shuang'er is definitely not only physical, but also mental and emotional." Queen Poisa nodded and said, "I also believe in this, but now the situation has changed a little, because there's an evil spirit in her body. I'm worried that it will affect her temperament." Young Dingtian couldn't help but frown. Queen Poisa said, "Of course, I'm just worried. After all, you have to know that once you two have intercourse, not only will you share her demigod body, but you will also share her cultivation. In other words, she will lose half of the energy she swallowed with great difficulty. In the ancient Naga, the male and female Naga were basically equal in cultivation. Most of the male Naga were higher, so when the two had intercourse, the female Naga had the advantage. But once Shuang'er has intercourse with you, she will lose too much energy." Young Dingtian nodded. If even the cultivation was shared, then the Naga Shuang would lose a lot. One must know that the energy needed for a Naga to break through the first stage was many times that of a human, because the energy she swallowed was not only used to improve her cultivation, but also used to transform her entire body. So once she had intercourse with young Dingtian, she would lose almost half of her energy, and let young Dingtian transform her into a demigod body. One must know that young Dingtian was just a human now. Queen Poisa said, "The original Shuang'er must have been very willing, but now, she has the evil spirit in her body, and this energy is very greedy and evil. So I'm worried. Of course, I'm just worried, and there's no basis for it." Young Dingtian. "Then Shuang'er, did she have any specific performance?" Queen Poisa said, cold and arrogant. "Although I was the one who gave birth to her, she never spoke a single word to me. She looked at me like I was an ant. Also, she has an infinite desire and greed for energy, and she is almost always devouring energy. Then Queen Poisa said, the original ruins of the old Naga Empire, although constantly distorted and changed, were not to the extent of frequent energy storms. However, the Naga Shuang was not satisfied with the ordinary devouring of the pyramid. Instead, she wanted to enter the Earth's core, to devour Xianqi crystals, with hundreds of thousands of times the concentration. This kind of devouring is very amazing. Usually, she would waste more than 100 Xianqi crystals to devour. Coupled with the outbreak of energy storms, every time she devours energy, she would need to consume 10,000 times the energy loss. So the old Naga Empire is constantly collapsing, and it is quickly approaching death. Yang Dingtian frowned. Naga's greed was really amazing, especially Shuang-er. Her greed for energy seemed to be even more intense. Queen Poisa said, so little Tian, I suggest that when you see the Naga Shuang, you don't take the initiative to share her energy and demigod talent, lest it arouses her greed and uneasiness. Yang Dingtian nodded, I understand. As long as I can defeat and destroy Wentian, my cultivation doesn't matter. Poisa said, also, don't show any affection to Vulture. Naga is extremely jealous and possessive. I know, Yang Dingtian said. Vulture's face was pale, but she nodded vigorously. Poisa brought Yang Dingtian into the pyramid and waited for the Naga Shuang to appear 3 days later. Chapter 11:16. This pyramid was indeed rather stable, and its surroundings had not undergone any drastic changes. Furthermore, there were 2 energy formations within the pyramid. Of course, the concentration of profound energy was far from that of the core of the ruins, but it was many times higher than that of the human countries. In ancient times, this pyramid should have been shared by 1 male and 1 female Naga. So there were 2 profound energy formations. Yang Dingtian sat under the profound energy formation and absorbed profound energy. He found that he could no longer absorb any profound energy at this concentration. This was because the cultivation of his energy sea had far surpassed the cultivation of his profound veins. It was already considered good that it was not leaking out, but it was impossible for him to absorb any more into his energy sea. Not only Yang Dingtian, Vulture was also unable to cultivate profound energy. On the other hand, Queen Poisa not only had her energy sea broken through to the 21st level of the Saint Realm, but her profound veins and body had also completed their transformation, reaching the 21st level of cultivation. Yang Dingtian was very surprised. How did she complete her transformation? Queen Poisa said that it was more or less an accident. She thought that she would definitely die in the energy storm. But who knew that this powerful energy would help her complete the transformation of her energy sea and profound veins, becoming a true Saint Realm expert. Of course, even so, this energy had exceeded the range of the transformation of her energy sea, causing her to be injured. Queen Poisa was not in the mood to cultivate, and now that Yang Dingtian was here, she was even less in the mood. Therefore, the 3 of them chatted and talked. Then they talked about how Yang Dingtian would complete the transformation of his energy sea and profound veins, and truly reach the Saint Realm. Yang Dingtian said that he would use the energy storm, but Poisa stopped him immediately, because it would be too dangerous, and such a small energy storm was not easy to find. It was very likely that it would tear him apart and turn him into ashes. In the end, Poisa said, if Naga Shuang is willing to help, she can take you directly to the place where the transformation took place. Then, she can bear the remaining energy of the fission and easily help you break through to the Saint Realm. Hearing Queen Poisa say that if Naga Shuang was willing to help, Yang Dingtian's heart could not help but tremble. Yang Dingtian and the other 2, in this relatively stable pyramid, waited for Naga Shuang to appear. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Although they were very anxious, 3 days passed very quickly. Queen Poisa led Yang Dingtian out of the pyramid and came to a huge flat depression in the ruins and said, 10 days ago, Naga Shuang entered the Earth's core from here. She should be coming out from here. Let's sit and wait. Young Dingtian, Vulture, and Poisa all sat down cross-legged and waited. Although young Dingtian appeared to be relatively calm, he was still somewhat uneasy and anxious. If it was really as Queen Poisa said, that Naga Shuang's temperament had changed greatly because she had swallowed the evil spirit of the origin, then it would be terrible. Without the help of Naga Duga Shuang, it was almost impossible to defeat the Demon King and save the human kingdom. If it was the previous clingy and naive Naga Shuang, young Dingtian would certainly have confidence in her. However, since Naga Shuang's transformation, young Dingtian had not seen her for almost a year. When she had swallowed the evil spirit of the origin and left the Empire of Darkness, Naga Shuang had been full of indifference and restlessness, and had directly distanced herself from young Dingtian. At that time, when young Dingtian had chased after her, she had almost attacked him. In fact, before she completed her transformation, Naga Shuang had attacked young Dingtian twice. Shuang had been like this at that time, let alone now. After all, Naga Dugu was a demigod, the ruling race of ancient times. It really did not seem like it could be controlled by humans. As young Dingtian was anxious and uneasy, time passed by minute, Naga Shuang still had not come out. At this time, young Dingtian was already preparing for the worst. If Naga Shuang had been greatly influenced by the evil spirit of the origin, and was not willing to help, then what should he do? Then there was really nothing he could do. Hopefully, the situation would not be so bad. Crack! At this time, the crystal ground under them suddenly trembled violently. Poisa said, Naga Shuang is coming out. Young Dingtian suddenly focused his mind, while Vulture's face was pale, and her beautiful eyes were full of fear. She was really instinctively afraid of such a powerful species like Naga. After all, her body was Shura, and her fear of Naga came from the depths of her soul. It was completely instinctive. Crack! After a series of violent tremors, suddenly, the huge crater in the crystal ground began to crack. Boom! Then countless crystals suddenly collapsed, forming a huge deep pit. Then a golden figure suddenly flew out. It was Naga Shuang. Her gigantic body, which was several hundred meters tall, soared into the sky from the huge abyss as she let out a series of roars. Every Naga was like this. When she was about to appear, she would roar and warn any creature not to come within 100 miles of her, or she would kill them without mercy. She had completely transformed into human form, but at this time, she still had the appearance of a Naga. Of course, at this time, she looked more like a dragon. She looked majestic and terrifying. Below there was a huge abyss completely bottomless. Young Dingtian knew how hard these energy crystals were. The Naga Shuang could easily create such a huge abyss, which showed how powerful she was. Naga was very greedy. After she devoured all the chi crystals in the ruins, the energy crystals in this area were completely wasted and turned into slag. That was why such a huge pit was formed. It could be said that all the energy in this deep pit had been devoured by her. Therefore, compared to the last time young Dingtian saw the Naga Shuang, the color of her body was more intense. In the golden yellow, there was a faint green light. It was a strange color. Moreover, her body was more than several times larger. Naga Shuang roared and flew into the sky. Her deep and terrifying eyes suddenly stared at young Dingtian, and the other two. Subsequently, her eyes kept circling around. Finally, she slowly landed in front of young Dingtian. Her huge body wrapped around young Dingtian, and then she put her huge head in front of young Dingtian. My husband. After shouting, her body shrank rapidly. When she was 3 or 4 meters tall, she directly turned into a human. She was completely in human form, and there was not an inch of clothing on her body. Young Dingtian finally saw Duga Shuang again. Then he was completely suppressed by her aura and beauty. Suppressed. This word was very rude, but it was true. At this moment, Duga Shuang's beauty was really like the sun, blooming dazzlingly. Every inch of her face, every inch of her body, seemed to be releasing light, so bright that it was impossible to open one's eyes. No matter how beautiful a woman was in front of her, she was instantly overshadowed. No matter where she went, She was really like the sun, radiating light in all directions. This kind of beauty had completely risen to the level of spirit and energy. Even the Empress of the Sea Serpent Empire would be completely suppressed in front of her. There was no doubt that the current Duge Shuang had become the most beautiful woman in the world. She had directly occupied the tip of the pyramid, the only tip of the pyramid. This kind of dazzling beauty was so dazzling that no one dared to look directly at it. It was breathtaking. My husband, is it really you? Naga Shuang stared into Yang Dingtian's eyes for a long time, and then suddenly hugged him tightly. Immediately, Yang Dingtian and Queen Poisa both let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, the bad situation didn't happen. Duge Shuang was still willing to admit that Yang Dingtian was her lover, and still didn't hesitate to call him husband. To others she was cold and arrogant, but to Yang Dingtian, she was still the same as before. After staring at Yang Dingtian for a long time, Naga Shuang directly moved her mouth forward and deeply kissed Yang Dingtian. She kissed very slowly, as if she was looking for some kind of memory, some kind of feeling. She had left Yang Dingtian for too long. In her mind, these memories might have become somewhat fuzzy, so she wanted to find them. Gradually, her kiss became deeper and deeper, and more emotional. Her beautiful body gradually changed, and a pair of flawless legs wrapped around Yang Dingtian's body. She had finally completely transformed into a human form, and was no different from a human woman. After kissing deeply for a full 15 minutes, Duge Shuang finally let go of Yang Dingtian, and continued to stare at his face, her beautiful eyes shining with incomparable affection. My husband, why are you only here now? Naga Shuang said tenderly. I was waiting to die. Sorry, I'm late. Yang Dingtian said softly. Not late. Naga Shuang said. As long as my husband is here, it's never too late. Shuang seemed to be as infatuated as before, but she didn't seem so childish anymore, as if she had matured. Yang Dingtian gently hugged her and said softly, All right, let's go home now, okay? I'll take you home. Naga Shuang was slightly stunned, and the light in her beautiful eyes seemed to be struggling. Yang Dingtian's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Then, Naga Shuang smiled gently at Yang Dingtian, and reached out to touch Yang Dingtian's energy reserve, and said in surprise, My husband, you've broken through to the saint level, but you haven't completed the transformation, and you haven't really broken through to the saint level yet. I'll take you there, okay? Yang Dingtian nodded and said, Okay. Then, Naga Shuang carried Yang Dingtian and flew away. She completely ignored Queen Poisa and Vulture, and didn't even look at them, let alone greet them. She took Yang Dingtian to the transformation of his energy reserve to break through to the saint level. Yang Dingtian could see that she was reluctant to leave the ruins of the old Naga Empire. Her greed for energy made her unwilling to leave. Of course, the situation wasn't too bad. At least she was still loyal to Yang Dingtian. Chapter 11:17. The Naga Shuang carried Yang Dingtian and flew in the sky above the ruins, completely ignoring the energy traps and the areas filled with energy. She flew straight over, looking for an energy storm that was neither too big nor too small. It would allow Yang Dingtian to undergo a nirvana transformation and break through to become a true saint-level expert. Just like that, they flew and flew. They flew for almost an hour, and circled for thousands of miles. Finally, they saw a fissure that was suddenly torn open in the ruins below. The Naga Shuang was overjoyed. She rushed down with Yang Dingtian and burrowed into the fissure. The reason why such a huge fissure had appeared in the ruins of the old Naga Empire was because the continuous collapse and contraction had caused the energy at the core of the earth to reach its limit and burst out, resulting in the formation of an energy storm. Shuang and Yang Dingtian directly entered the most powerful part of the energy storm. Almost instantly, destructive energy poured into Yang Dingtian's body. Yang Dingtian could clearly feel that this energy was the energy of hundreds and thousands of saint-level experts. Normally, if he encountered energy of this level at this time, he would be reduced to ashes. However, this was only a small part of this energy storm. The rest of the energy was absorbed by the Naga Shuang. According to Yang Dingtian's prediction, this energy storm might not be able to destroy the entire northwest continent, but it would have no problem destroying the Great Cloud Sky City. Endless energy poured in madly. At this time, the energy sea was like a black hole that could not be satisfied at all. It kept devouring, 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 devouring. After devouring to the limit, the entire energy sea had reached an absolute critical value. Boom, 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 boom. The entire energy sea was forcibly expanded and completed the nirvana transformation. Then, this incomparably powerful energy continued to pour out of the energy sea like a storm, cleansing every inch of his profound veins. Every time it cleansed a part of his meridians, it would complete the nirvana transformation. After a full 7 minutes, Yang Dingtian's entire body had completed the nirvana transformation, becoming a 21st level saint level expert. If it was any other place, Yang Dingtian would definitely have an earth-shattering reaction after becoming a saint-level expert. However, in this place, in this storm, there were only a few of them. Next, the energy storm would cause fatal damage to Yang Dingtian. The Naga Shuang suddenly transformed from a peerless beauty into a 100-meter-long Naga that wrapped around Yang Dingtian. Immediately, Yang Dingtian was no longer harmed by the energy storm. The energy storm continued to erupt crazily. Shuang and Yang Dingtian were swept up into the void tens of thousands of meters high. It had to be said that Naga Shuang's demigod body was truly astonishing. No human would be able to withstand such a frightening energy storm. Those who were swept up by it were almost annihilated. Naga Shuang, on the other hand, was completely unharmed. Naga Shuang would not forcibly fly away from the energy storm. Although it was not impossible for her to do so with all her strength, she would not do so. By the time the energy storm had completely erupted and ended, Yang Dingtian and Shuang had been swept thousands of miles away. After the energy storm had completely dissipated, Naga Shuang returned to the appearance of a peerless beauty. "Husband, you have broken through to the 21st level," Shuang said excitedly. Yang Dingtian said, "Thank you, Shuang. How is your cultivation now? What level is it?" Shuang said, "Husband, we Naga are different from humans. We are not described by levels. We will only be divided into levels after we have broken through to the demigod level." Yang Dingtian was stunned. He said, "In other words, in the Naga, only those who have broken through to the demigod level will be recognized as warriors of the Naga race?" Shuang nodded and said, "Only a Naga who has broken through to the demigod level can be considered a true Naga." Yang Dingtian said, "Then Shuang, how far are you from the demigod level?" Shuang nodded and said, "Still very far." Then Shuang said with a little pride, "Husband, in the ancient Naga, basically every Naga needs at least 2,000 years to break through to the demigod level. And I am not even 30 years old this year. At the current speed, I might be able to break through to the saint level in less than 20 years. I will become the fastest Naga to break through to the saint level in history." Yang Dingtian, of course, knew how this title came about. Although the ancient Naga had a complete Naga empire, it was shared by millions of Naga. Each person could only occupy one energy array pyramid. Naga Shuang, on the other hand, had an entire old Naga empire ruin's energy body all to herself. This was a ruin, and it was constantly decaying, and the energy was less than 1% of what it used to be. However, Naga Shuang's share was 10,000 times more than what the ancient Naga had. Shuang was especially greedy. She couldn't even wait to devour in the pyramid. Instead, she entered the Earth's core and directly devoured hundreds of thousands of chi crystals. Her cultivation speed naturally improved by leaps and bounds. "Let's go back, or Poisa will be waiting anxiously," Yang Dingtian said. Naga Shuang frowned, then nodded and said, "Husband, in fact, according to the Naga law, Poisa is absolutely not allowed to meet me." "I know," Yang Dingtian said. "But hasn't the Naga Empire been destroyed?" "No," Naga Shuang said firmly. "As long as there is a Naga, the Naga Empire has not been destroyed. When I am strong enough, I will be the Naga Empire." Hearing these incomparably domineering words, Yang Dingtian's heart couldn't help but tremble. The Naga that had completed the transformation was really different. Then Shuang looked at Yang Dingtian and corrected herself. It should be said that we are the Naga Empire. Yang Dingtian smiled at her and didn't debate with her. No smart person would debate with a real Naga. Their pride and stubbornness were completely unparalleled. If you wanted to debate with them, fine, but you had to defeat them first. At this time, they were very far away from Queen Poise's pyramid. Naga Shuang and Yang Dingtian flew back. Yang Dingtian said, Shuang, do you still remember the Demon King Wentian? Naga Shuang frowned, and a trace of murderous intent flashed in her eyes. She said, I remember. Husband, don't worry. I am not afraid of his empire of darkness now. I will definitely kill him. Yang Dingtian said, but he is different now. His cultivation was originally at the peak of the saint level. In Little Western Paradise, there is a speechless clan Su Yen, who is a candidate of the demigod race chosen by the fallen silver dragon. He is the ancestor of the entire Little Western Paradise civilization, and the president of the Silver Dragon Temple. He has been cultivating for thousands of years, and is only half a step away from becoming a demigod. Now these two people have merged, and are wearing a Chaos Emperor armor, made of more than 1,000 demon spirits. They can flash more than hundreds of miles in an instant. It would take the energy of thousands of saint-level experts to destroy their emperor armor. Suddenly, Naga Shuang fell silent. Then she said, even so, I am not afraid of him at all. He can't hurt me at all. Yang Dingtian said, I know. Can Shuang defeat him? Naga Shuang fell silent. Silence meant that he couldn't. I won't lose. Naga Shuang said, but I can't kill him now. I can only kill him after I become a demigod. The Demon King Wentian is not scary. As long as his Chaos Emperor armor is destroyed, he will definitely die. But as for the Speechless clan, I am too young, and they are also a candidate of the demigod race, so. Then Shuang said, husband, if he is not from the Speechless clan but the Shura clan, then I am absolutely confident that I can destroy him. Although the Shura clan is also a candidate of the demigod race, and their physical talents are not inferior to the Speechless clan, they were exterminated by the Naga clan. So they are innately afraid of the Naga clan. The Speechless clan, on the other hand, is a race after the Naga clan was destroyed, so they have no memory of being afraid of us. Yang Dingtian nodded and asked, with our current situation, how can we kill this Demon King? Shuang said, there are 2 steps. First, destroy his Chaos Emperor armor. Although the Speechless clan's physical talents are very high, the Demon King Wentian has swallowed an endless amount of energy in the Empire of Darkness and suppressed it. Coupled with the Xianqi energy of the Speechless clan, his Sea of Qi is very dangerous. And as long as he doesn't have the body of a demigod, he will never be able to complete the Nirvana transformation. So the second step is to attack his Sea of Qi, and try to detonate it as much as possible. Yang Dingtian nodded. Shuang continued. In addition, the Demon King Wentian's primordial evil spirit has been swallowed by me, so his Sea of Qi is no longer invincible. Yang Dingtian thought for a while and said, Shuang, there's evil spirit energy in his body again, but it's a second-class evil spirit. Moreover, the other half of the primordial evil spirit is in the Devil Queen's body. If the Demon King and the Devil Queen are willing, he can even have half of the primordial evil spirit. Of course, the probability is very low. Primordial evil spirit? Shuang's beautiful eyes suddenly lit up, filled with incomparable greed. Yang Dingtian hesitated for a moment and asked, Shuang, did that primordial evil spirit cause you to have some changes? Shuang looked at Yang Dingtian and said, it made my cultivation speed increase a lot. Yang Dingtian asked, then did it cause some changes in your state of mind? Naga Shuang shook her head and said, no, and we Naga clan have this kind of energy in our bodies, but it's very thin. Yang Dingtian was stunned. The Naga clan has innate evil spirit energy in their bodies? Then, Naga Shuang said word by word, I must take back the other half of the primordial evil spirit. If anyone stops us, we will tear them into pieces and grind their bones to ashes. Then Shuang turned her head and said, "Husband, when I am strong enough, we will kill the Demon King and Devil Queen, and take back the primordial evil spirit." Young Dingtian was stunned. "This primordial evil spirit is not yours, and I need you to go back now and defeat the Demon King." Chapter 11:18. They returned to the pyramid where Queen Poisa was. Young Dingtian formally proposed to the Naga Shuang that they should return to the human kingdoms and help destroy the Demon King, Su Yen Wentian. He did not beat around the bush and directly asked the Naga Shuang to return to the human kingdoms. The Naga Shuang fell into silence. She neither agreed nor refused. She raised her head and looked at young Dingtian. "Husband, the ruins of the old Naga Empire are collapsing and being destroyed every day." Young Dingtian nodded. The Naga Shuang said, "That is to say, it is dying every day. It will not be long before it is completely destroyed. It may take a few hundred years, a few decades, a few years, or a few months. One day, it will be completely destroyed." Young Dingtian nodded again in agreement. The Naga Shuang said, "And it is my only chance to break through to the demigod level. Naga who has not broken through to the demigod level is not the real Naga. If it is not the real Naga, it will not be able to inherit the Naga civilization. Therefore, the ruins of the old Naga Empire are my only chance." Young Dingtian was silent for a long time before he agreed again. Young Dingtian had the obligation to save the human kingdom, but Naga Shuang didn't have the same obligation. Of course, she did owe young Dingtian a lot, but he could not force her to do anything. The Naga Shuang said, "Husband, the ruins of the old Naga Empire are not only a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me, but also for you. The progress of cultivating here for a day is far greater than that of cultivating in the human kingdoms for a year. Therefore, you can cultivate here to the highest level you can reach. If you miss this opportunity, you will not have another chance." This time, young Dingtian didn't remain silent. Instead, he said, "I don't have much desire for energy cultivation. As long as I can defeat the Demon King, it doesn't matter." Naga Shuang said, "That's great. When I'm strong enough, I'll be able to defeat the Demon King, Su Yentian. I only need 20 years to break through to the demigod realm. At that time, killing the Demon King will be a piece of cake." Young Dingtian said, "But the human world and the Little Western Paradise can't wait for that day." Naga Shuang said, "What do the human countries and the Little Western Paradise have to do with us?" She said these words very naturally, without the slightest bit of dishonesty. To her, even the venomous queen was like an ant, let alone the other humans. Then, Naga Shuang said, "Husband, we are going to inherit the foundation of the Naga Empire in the future. What does the human countries and the so-called Little Western Paradise matter?" Young Dingtian said, "It matters to me. Besides, my wife, my children, my comrades, and my family are there." When she heard the words wife and children, Naga Shuang's beautiful face twitched, and a trace of ferocity appeared in her eyes. Naga's possessiveness was very strong. After a long time, Naga Shuang said, "Are those people more important than me? More important than us dominating the world in the future?" The words dominating the world came out of Naga Shuang's mouth without any foreshadowing. It didn't feel abrupt at all. This was because Naga was like that. Once they completed their transformation, they were born to dominate the world and become the world's overlord. Young Dingtian stared at Naga Shuang and said word by word, "You are also my wife, my family. You are just as important as them. But at least you are now very strong and safe. You don't need my protection. However, they still need my protection." Naga Shuang remained silent. Young Dingtian looked at her and said, "Shuang, don't impose on others what you don't want to be done to you. I have no right to ask you to do anything. If you don't want to return to the human countries and help me destroy the Demon King Su Yentian, I won't force you." Then, young Dingtian said to Poisa and Vulture, "Let's go." Naga Shuang suddenly stood up and said, "No, you can't go." Young Dingtian said, "Shuang, I won't force you. You can't force me either." Naga Shuang gasped for breath. hesitating and struggling between her mate and her energy desire. After a while she said, "Then will you come back?" Yang Dingtian said, "If I don't die, I will." Naga Shuang said, "But if you go, you will die without a doubt." Yang Dingtian said, "We have a saying, even if there are millions of people, I will go." Naga Shuang said, "You know that an egg will hit a rock, yet you still want to court death? That's not bravery, it's stupidity." Of course, Yang Dingtian and Naga Shuang both knew that it was very easy to prevent Yang Dingtian from dying. The two of them would become true mates and Yang Dingtian would share the body of a demigod. He would be immortal. But Naga Shuang didn't mention it, and Yang Dingtian certainly wouldn't. Yang Dingtian said, "I'm not smart enough." Then, Yang Dingtian waved to Poisa and Vulture and said, "Okay, let's go." Queen Poisa and Vulture quietly walked to Yang Dingtian's side. Vulture was a little uneasy about Naga Shuang's attitude, but also a little relieved. Because before, she was the one who had made mistakes. Vulture was also the one with the moral stain. Now that person had become Naga Shuang. Vulture, on the other hand, stood bravely on her husband's side. It was really cool to have such a moral advantage. Yang Dingtian held Vulture and Poisa's hands and directly flew into the air, flying away from the ruins of the old Naga Empire. They flew further and further away, hundreds of miles away from the ruins. Whoosh! Suddenly, an energy storm swept over, making Yang Dingtian and the other two completely lose control of their bodies. They were directly swept to the ground and returned to the ruins. Of course, this energy storm didn't erupt from the ruins, but was created by Naga Shuang. Naga Shuang's beautiful body was still standing in place. She stared at Yang Dingtian for a long time and said, "Darling, how long do you think the Demon King Wentian will enter the human world through the dark crack?" Yang Dingtian said, 98 days. Naga Shuang asked, "Then how many days will it take for us to return to the human world?" Yang Dingtian said, 10 days. Naga Shuang said, "If I'm here, it'll be very fast. I can't go back just because I don't have spatial skills. How about this? Let's cultivate here for 80 days, and then go back." Yang Dingtian's eyebrows twitched and said, "Time is tight. If there's an accident, all our previous efforts will be wasted." Naga Shuang said, "Every day I cultivate here is incomparably precious to me. I insist on cultivating here for 80 days, and then we'll go back together." Her words were resolute and decisive. Then she said, "These 80 days can make a huge improvement in my cultivation. For you, the improvement will be even greater. This way, we'll have a higher chance of winning against the Demon King." In the end, she said firmly, "It's decided then." Yang Dingtian and Queen Poisa looked at each other. Without Naga Shuang, they had no chance of winning this battle. 80 days, so be it. Then, Yang Dingtian nodded. Then, Naga Shuang carried Yang Dingtian and flew out of the pyramid without saying anything. She was going to look for a crack to drill into the heart of the abyss ruins and devour the highest concentration of mystical energy. Queen Poisa and Vulture looked at each other and smiled helplessly. Alas, it's a pity that Naga won't help. Otherwise, she could easily help you break through to saint-level nirvana transformation, Queen Poisa said. Compared to humans, it's much easier for you. You have the body of Ashura. Vulture curled her lips and said, "I don't dare to think about such a wonderful thing." Queen Poisa said, "I have a certain understanding of the abyss ruins. When an energy storm of about the same size is produced, I'll take you to complete the nirvana transformation." Vulture said sweetly, "Thank you, sister." But just a moment later, Naga Shuang and Yang Dingtian flew back into the pyramid. Naga Shuang's face was cold and very unhappy. She went forward and directly flew away with Vulture. Naga Shuang flew into the sky with Vulture and looked for an energy storm, full of resentment. "Remember, I have nothing to do with you. If it weren't for my husband, I would never help you complete the nirvana transformation, you lowly Shura." Vulture didn't care about it at all. Instead, she was proud. "My husband is good to me. So what if you're Naga? You're still obediently waiting for my orders and helping me to break through." Less than half an hour later, Naga Shuang came back with Vulture. Vulture's face was pale. Obviously, she had suffered some hardships. But in the end, she completed the nirvana transformation and became a saint-level expert. So she couldn't hide her excitement. Yang Dingtian asked, Shasha, can this pyramid last for 80 days? Queen Poisa shook her head and said, It shouldn't. But you have to come out every 10 days, so you don't have to worry about us getting lost. Yang Dingtian nodded and said, Then take good care of Vulture. Queen Poisa said, That's not necessarily who will take care of who. A saint-level celestial spirit master is very terrifying. They can even manipulate and control small energy storms. Before Yang Dingtian could finish, Naga Shuang directly flew out of the pyramid with him in her arms. After flying for a few thousand miles, they saw a very small crack on the ground. Naga Shuang suddenly transformed into a naga that was hundreds of meters long. Then, she suddenly opened her mouth and directly swallowed Yang Dingtian into her stomach. Yes, she directly swallowed him. It really gave Yang Dingtian a huge shock. Of course, she didn't eat him. She took him to the center of the ruins and protected him with her body, so that he wouldn't be under the strong pressure of the ruins of the Naga Empire. Then, she suddenly turned into a golden light and crazily drilled into the crack. She entered the center of the ruins and looked for the energy cave. In the energy cave, she swallowed hundreds of thousands of chi crystals. She was the energy body with the highest concentration in the world. Meanwhile, Yang Dingtian was inside her body. He was absorbing the mystic chi and exhaling as he cultivated. They had to cultivate for a full 80 days and carry out the craziest energy devouring in history. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.